Well, hello. Hello, everyone. How are you? I had to, listen, I'm trying to fix all my shit here, and I'm not even sure if it's working. Okay? So, welcome in, everyone. Glad to see there was some peeps in the chat. Hope everybody's having a good night. We're gonna close out March. Hopefully, with a final live that isn't gonna have too many problems, but you know how the fucking spooks do around here. So, let me know if this audio's bad here. I'm gonna pop in via my phone instead. So, hello. Hello, everyone. Let's see how we're doing. Am I a robot? Can you hear me? Is this thing working? Hello? I'm playing around with my audio right now, friends, because I don't know what the hell's going on, okay? So, I'm just making sure you can hear me. Doing a little test. Let's test it there. Testing here. Test. Sound is okay. Mrs. E. Petty Crocker. Well, thank you. However, it is the norm here on this channel. It's not that I don't trust you, but, many times people are like, your audio is fine, and it's not. So I just want to make sure. Let me check my chat. Let me go up. Skullmachi, if you're still here, hello. Hello. As one divided, hello. How are you? Suzanne B, hi, how are you? Lucy, Skullma Purge, Gen 7 Gangsta. Scully says that it's Gucci. Okay. Alright. Wait, Skullma Purge. Oh, okay. Wait, my bad. I just got it. That's Kane B. What up, Kane B? I think Scully's in here too, though, right? Yeah. I saw Scully. How's everybody doing? Did you like the trailer, Scully? It's kind of old. I gotta update it. Mama 5, hello. How are you? Hope everybody's having a good night. We're closing out March. I know I told you I wouldn't see you till April, but there's a couple things that I wanted to close March out with anyway, just still in line with what we've been kind of talking about here for the last, month and a half or so. Lucy, darling, I hope I said hi to you. I feel like I did. Listen, it's late. Alright. I'm tired. It's okay. But the reason I figured I might as well do this now too is because we're gonna have a lot going on for the next 9 days, okay, 9 to 10 days, and moving and stuff, getting all finalized moving. So I won't see you guys probably till I don't know, man, unless they drop some docs. I might, on the sneaky link, 1 a.m. Maybe read some docs if they drop them. Are you guys sure my audio is holding up? Because, it's looking a little wackadoodle over here on my end. I can see it on my screen. And it looks like it's going fucking haywire. Are we having solar flares or anything, Lucy, darling? Or can you actually hear me, clear? No clipping, no in and out. It's looking a little wild over here. On my end. Inside your bones, hello. So we're closing out March with a couple of things that I think are super interesting. And you guys know me as I do. I go look at things, and then when I'm looking at one thing, it leads me to another thing, and blah, blah, blah. Brainworms, right? So, I'm going to try and keep it short and sweet, like an hour, If everybody has an hour and the spooks don't come in and mess with my audio and we can remain calm here, we're going to look at a few things. Okay. I should probably give it a few minutes, huh? Get my thoughts together. We're like 5 minutes in. I think we're okay. Gen 7. Gangsta! Thank you. The kitty's good. She's feeling much better. So, that was also crazy. But it is what it is, right? Life hits when it hits and you gotta roll with it. So that's what we're doing. I figured, you know what? Alright, let's do this for like 9 o'clock. We'll put about an hour into it. I'm gonna share a couple of things with you. As you know, probably about, I don't know, a month ago? Right around there. We went over the first article from Investigate West regarding this is where we learned that Vickie Gooch was partnering up with Department of Homeland Security, the Cobbs Foundation, and OUR Rescue to do undercover human trafficking stings in the fall of 2022. If everybody, I think everyone in the chat remembers us going over that, correct? Hopefully. What we're going to take a look at are the follow-up articles to that article, where we're going to see that after these undercover human trafficking stings occur in Idaho with Cobbs and OUR, well, what happens following in 2023 is pretty interesting, because both of those organizations end up under federal investigations. Very interesting. And we'll go on to see, which I'm going to share with you, the 185-page filing with the United States District Court, I believe it is, against, this is the federal lawsuit complaint against Tim Ballard and OUR Rescue. We're not going to go through the full 183 pages, but I will link it for everyone, obviously, so that you have it, and, at your leisure, like I always say here, print it, laminate it, frame it, do what you like. But, listen, you guys know me and my fucking brain worms, right? We're like 8 minutes in, I think I can swear. You guys know me and my brain worms, so it's the dates for me, right? It is the dates, it is the pattern, it is, for me, just something interesting. How it all seems to, the chain of events that we're going to take a little look at here, okay? So, if you guys don't remember, I will share screen briefly for the first article that we went over probably a month, maybe even longer than that ago. Okay. I had found this Investigate West article. We covered it here. We went through the whole thing. That's where we learned Vickie Gooch was part of these undercover human trafficking stings in the fall of 2022. At the same time that WSU has some of their police officers under investigation for grooming and sexual assault and or being complicit in covering it up, etc. So we have all of that happening. Okay. Vickie Gooch, along with Department of Homeland Security, so Idaho State Police, along with Department of Homeland Security, partner up with Cobbs and OUR. Okay. So I'm going to share that. Where is it? Which one is it here? Okay, this was the first one. Hope everybody's having a good night. Hopefully the audio is going to hold up. Okay, so this is the first Investigate West article. By the way, I have all 3 of these Investigate West articles linked in the description of the video for anybody who wants them, in the description of the live. We're not going to read through the whole thing. We'll get to this part here. Hopefully everybody can still hear me okay. Welcome in, everybody. Good to see you. Hopefully everybody's having a great night. Are you guys sure you can actually hear me? Tell me the truth. Audio's good. Thank you, Scully. Okay. Alright, I mean, I'm gonna trust you guys. But if I go back on the replay and it's not good, you know, we're gonna have to... I'm kidding. We're gonna have to do nothing about it except probably delete the damn thing if the audio's really bad. Lucy says she has thunderstorms. It glitches when you ask if audio is good. Miss Q, welcome on in. Scully, that's hysterical. Mama 5, you can hear me. H-E-R-E-S. Okay, cool. I just like to make sure, friends, you know, before I start reading, you know. Okay, so cool. Hopefully you guys can see that. I made it full screen. All right, here we go. So, All right, this is the first one we looked at from Investigate West, where we found out that all of this OUR, right? You could see here it says in September 2022, the Human Trafficking Task Force, launched by Cobbs, coordinated a victim-focused sting operation. It involved law enforcement officers pretending to be buyers of sex and contacting women online to meet them in a hotel, according to police reports from the Nampa Police Department. Sidebar, anybody paying attention prior when we went over this, in all of Idaho, Nampa has the most arrests where most of the victims, almost all of the arrestees are victims of trafficking. And it's on their record. And even though they're victims, they're still arrested for things like prostitution and drugs and whatever, and yet no traffickers have been charged. Just the victims. As we read further, it says, when the women arrived at the hotel, officers detained them, police reports show. The women were then interviewed at the office that Cobbs shares with Advanced Clinical Trauma Services, a for-profit arm of Cobbs owned by Bartholomew's son. Bartholomew, Paula Bartholomew, is the head of Cobbs, or was, or whatever. We'll get into it. As we see here, again, Idaho, it says here, Idaho isn't undertaking its crusade against human trafficking alone. Operation Underground Railroad, a controversial international nonprofit that helps law enforcement, quote, rescue human trafficking victims, provided training, mentorship, and resources to Idaho law enforcement for the 2022 sting, according to the Idaho State Police. The organization, now called OUR Rescue, raises tens of millions of dollars per year and claims to have supported more than 6,000 survivors since its founding in 2013. It partnered with Cobbs for a community awareness event in 2020, according to the Cobbs Facebook page, and has given Cobbs at least $6,000 since 2020, according to Cause IQ, a website that tracks nonprofit funding. Tim Ballard, OUR's founder, left the organization last year amid allegations that he sexually assaulted multiple employees and misled donors, but not before inspiring the 2023 movie Sound of Freedom, a box office hit about child sex trafficking that grossed over $250 million worldwide, according to Box Office Mojo. Blah, 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 blah. No women were arrested the night of the 2022 sting operation. Even though prostitution is a crime in Idaho, said Idaho State Police Detective Vickie Gooch, who co-chaired the operation, quote, Our goal wasn't in that particular operation to arrest them. It was to offer them victim services, to recognize that they are victims of the industry, she said. So I'm going to come back over to chat. Hopefully you guys heard all that. Welcome in, everyone. Bronx Tales, hello. Yeah, see, something's happening. Hopefully you guys heard all that, though. So far, yeah. Are we all on the same page here? Critic Rick, hello. Welcome on in. The White Rabbit, hello. Hopefully everybody's having a good night and you can hear me. So, as we just reiterated here, this is the first article that we went over, I don't know, a month and a half ago or so. Vickie Gooch co-chaired the sting operation in the fall of 2022 with COBS and with OUR. So just keep that all in mind. I'm going to stop sharing this because that's all you need to know. Vickie Gooch and the Idaho State Police. Now you have to remember, Dept of Homeland Security was already working with Idaho State Police since 2020 because the Dept of Homeland Security came in and implemented this federal trafficking task force. Okay? And ISP contracted with them and stuff. So Vickie Gooch actually co-chaired this undercover sting operation. Okay? Now, just keep that all in mind. Just remember, fall of 2022. Keep it all in mind. You now have COBS and OUR, in my opinion, seemingly actually being investigated by Dept of Homeland Security and ISP, and as we go further, maybe you'll understand why I have that opinion. We'll keep going, and you're either going to get it or I don't know, okay? Because to me, it's just blatantly obvious once you actually go through everything. So keep all of this in mind in 2022. All of a sudden, we'll partner up with you. Sure, COBS. Sure, OUR. What we're going to learn as we go through Tim Ballard's criminal complaint, the federal complaint, it would appear feds, spooks were already monitoring him and what they were doing since 2020, right around the same time that the Homeland Security is doing the task force in Idaho. And what we'll find out too is that after all of this happened with Idaho State Police and COBS and OUR in Idaho, following year in 2023 is when Ballard has to resign due to all of the allegations, and we have text messages. So this criminal complaint, this federal complaint that I'm going to share with you guys, you'll see the text, it's in black and white. It's a cult. Okay? It's an actual cult. I'm just gonna come right out and say it. We're gonna get there, and I'm just gonna show you why I think that. Whatever the fuck was going on here, okay, that Miss Vickie Gooch was involved with, Idaho State Police, listen, something tells me this was a little trap for COBS and OUR in Idaho. This is just my opinion. Because Idaho State Police had already been partnered up with Dept of Homeland Security for a couple years before all this went down. Okay? And they ended up picking up sticks and moving shop. OUR did. Guess where? Guess where? None other than motherfucking Minnesota. None other than Minnesota. Okay? So we're going to get there. I'm just giving you brainworms, okay, as to where we're going here. But wait until you guys hear this shit in this complaint here. It's insane. All right, so this is the original article. Keep everything in mind. 2020, Department of Homeland Security is initiating a task force for human trafficking. What is happening? Sorry, I don't know what's happening. They're partnering up with Idaho State Police. Okay. And then, as we learned, Bartholomew's here for Cobbs in 2022, fall of 2022. They're all partnering up. And I think that it's actually Idaho State Police and Department of Homeland Security actually, like, I'll say it, I don't want to say trapping them, but like catching them. To be honest with you, I'm just giving you my honest to God's opinion, and I'll show you why I think that. All right, so let's go to the next one, right? Next article. All right. What's it? This one? The one that's dated the 16th first. No, okay. It's the other one first, and then this one. Okay. I don't know why is it giving me a problem. They're here. Spooks are here. It's gotta be that one, I think. Oops, no, same one. Annie. Sorry, guys. So sorry. Give me 1 minute, please. I have so many tabs open, so I'm like, which one was it? So it's this one, I think. One that's dated for the 15th. Yeah. Okay, so. Can you guys see that okay? Why is my screen so small here? What the hell? Alright. Everybody can see that okay, right? It's huge on your screen? Yeah, sorry, Lucy. I don't know what StreamYard's doing right now, okay? Sorry. It blew up on my end, too. It was huge. Okay. So, the second one that we have here. This is the Idaho Safe House claimed it was saving trafficking victims. Women said it was like being trafficked all over again. And this is July 15th, 2024. Everything is linked in the description. Here we go. So 3 years ago, Paula Bartholomew, the mother of Idaho's first anti-trafficking task force, the fiery advocate with the ear of policymakers, the devoted social worker allowed inside police interrogation rooms, dropped by an Idaho jail to visit a woman called Franky. Franky, on the run from her trafficker, was behind bars after she made an attempt at suicide by cop. Responding to a report of a woman sobbing and crying, officers found Franky smoking a cigarette outside a church. She had warrants for her arrest. She refused to be handcuffed. Finally wrestled to the ground by 4 officers, she bit one cop's knee, a felony, in hopes he would kill her. Franky, you poor thing. Bartholomew, her blonde hair hanging to her shoulders, visited the jail to offer Franky a way out. Bartholomew leads a nonprofit in Idaho called Community Outreach Behavioral Services, or COBS, that operates safe houses. I'm using this term loosely, by the way. Operates safe houses for trafficking survivors that she said provides, quote, therapy. Instead of serving her full sentence in prison, Bartholomew said Franky could leave prison early and live in one of the safe houses. It was the same promise Bartholomew has made to dozens of other women trapped in a world of exploitation and misery, cycling between jail and trafficking. The safe house offered a chance at shelter and recovery. If Franky went with her, she could leave her former life behind. Quote, "She said it's going to be so great. It's going to be rough, but it's going to be good," Franky said. Franky believed her, and this is Paula Bartholomew. It says, Franky, who asked to go by her street name, is part of a growing number of sex trafficking victims identified across the country in the last decade. In 2021, reports of people being trafficked, often described as a form of slavery in which people are forced into commercial sex work or other labor, was nearly double the reported number in 2015, according to the National Human Trafficking Hotline, a 24/7 phone line that maintains one of the nation's most extensive human trafficking data sets. And awareness of the problem has risen sharply, boosted by high-profile cases like those against disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein and more recently hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs. Sidebar, we've covered the Diddy indictment here and the Cassie lawsuit, so, if you want to go watch those after you are done with this, feel free. It's emerged as a critical issue for politicians on both sides of the spectrum. The Trump administration, weeks before the 2020 election, announced it was, quote, committed to combating human trafficking, as his administration released a national plan that included, quote, the first ever grants for safe housing for survivors, end quote. A year later, the Biden administration released an updated plan intended to address the needs of, quote, undeserved individuals, families, and communities, end quote. Just keep the dates in mind. The federal response includes more than 500 grants of more than $350 million managed by the Department of Justice Office for Victims of Crime to strengthen trafficking victim services programs as of 2022. So $350 million managed by the Department of Justice Office for Victims of Crime to combat trafficking, right, and strengthen trafficking victim service programs as of 2022. $350 million. Sidebar, I think for these undercover operations that Gooch was a part of, they were given like $1.5 million, if I remember correctly, for one of those operations, or not for the whole thing, maybe it was for more than one, but they were given like $1.5 million, and if I remember correctly, it was actually only 6 people, like 6 victims that were like helped and or rescued or whatever the case may be. Because as we go on, we'll see that Cobbs, Paula Bartholomew here, and her safe houses ended up under investigation. Right? So Idaho State Police and the judges and the lawyers that work to send these people like Franky here. So when Franky gets arrested and doesn't want to go back to jail, Franky's given a choice by one of the judges in the drug courts. Some of our favorites handle these cases. Some of our favorites in Idaho, favorite judges in Idaho handle these types of cases. Well, you can go to jail, or you can go to fucking Cobbs, right? But it would appear after, Vickie Gooch and ISP do this undercover sting with Cobbs and OUR, well, the following year they end up under fucking federal investigation and shit. Kind of ironic. All right, let's keep going. And that money is often directed. So, again, $350 million managed by the DOJ for victims of crime to strengthen trafficking victim service programs as of 2022. And that money is often directed by state and local agencies into smaller local anti-trafficking organizations like COBS, which in Idaho needs no license to operate a safe house, even as women are referred there by judges, police, and public defenders. Right, it's like a legal brothel, in my opinion. No license to operate a safe house, even as women are referred there by judges, police, and public defenders. It's just my opinion. It gives me, Sheriff Steins and Judge Mullins vibes all over again. And I've said that for a while now, since we started reading into this stuff over there, okay? These are just my opinion, friends, by the way, if you're new here. If you're a lurker and this is triggering you that I'm saying these things, it's fine. You're going to be just fine. These are just opinions, right? Okay? It's fine. They're just my opinions. I read things. I give my opinions on them. I snark. I witch cackle. I ride my broom. You're going to be just fine. If you're here, I hope you're an adult and, you can handle hearing things maybe you don't like. Okay? Hopefully. Hopefully everybody's fine with that. Hopefully everybody's fine with that. Okay, everybody good? Everybody good? Hopefully, you guys can see that and hear me okay. So let's get back into this, okay? So, you have, your judges, police, and public defenders who are sending people like Franky to these places, these Cobbs places, these alleged safe houses for women, for trafficking victims, right? Where in Idaho, you don't need a license to operate a safe house. Even though it's the judges, police, and public defenders who are taking all of that money that's supposed to be helping the trafficking victims. Okay, let's continue. The funding helped fuel Barthelmeus's rise to prominence in the Boise area, where she's the subject of flattering local TV reports calling her a hero and praising the nonprofit's work to, quote, rescue survivors of human trafficking with its, quote, amazing volunteer team. An investigation of the program by Investigate West, however, reveals a different story. It's one that highlights a widespread lack of accountability for a growing anti-trafficking movement wrestling with competing philosophies on how to serve victims as a booming industry of safe and sober homes rakes in billions of dollars on the premise of helping the most in need. As Cobbs gained influence in Idaho, former Cobbs employees and residents say the program recruited women into the safe houses and kept them there using manipulative tactics mirroring those of traffickers. The residents were then drawn into a self-dealing scheme in which a for-profit counseling company owned by Barthelmeus's son tapped into clients' Medicaid insurance and billed for services residents say they never received, Investigate West has found. So, Paula Barthelmeus, founder of Cobbs, also, these residents of hers, these trafficking victims, the residents are then drawn into a self-dealing scheme in which a for-profit counseling company owned by her son taps into their Medicaid insurance and bills for services residents say they never received. Several residents say the program was overly restrictive. One former safe house resident, who goes by Jay, that's who we read about in the previous article, described living in a Cobbs safe house like this, quote, you're told where to live, what you can sleep in, what clothes you can wear, if you can cut your hair, if you can dye your hair, if you can wear makeup. You cannot leave the house. If you go outside the front door, you get reprimanded. You go outside the back door, and if you're doing anything besides vaping, you get reprimanded. You have to go to all the classes they say. You're not allowed to have a phone. You're not allowed to drive your own vehicle. You have to go to all the counselors they tell you to go, right, at her son's place because he's the one billing your Medicaid for it, just saying, according to this Investigate West investigation. You have to go to all the counselors they tell you to go to, all the doctors they tell you to go to. They want to keep your money. They don't give you your money or your food stamps. They hold on to everything and tell you when you can use it and what you use it on and how you can use it. Bartholomew even read the therapist's notes from one-on-one sessions with clients, and former employees and residents say she used that information to make residents fall in line. Sidebar, Mercy Cat's going to be so pissed when she hears that. As long as I'm coming through loud and clear. And you guys can actually hear me here when she hears that. She is going to be so pissed when she hears that. Mercy Cat is going to be absolutely on fire when she hears that. Yes. She was reading private one-on-one doctor patient privileged confidential information and using it to make them fall in line. Fine. Okay. I feel like I'm having problems here, though. It looks like I'm like glitchy on my end, friends, so hang on. I don't know what's happening, but I don't want to be glitching out. Okay. Should be good. Alright. So, let's continue. It says here, Bartholomew even read therapist notes from one-on-one sessions with clients, and former employees and residents say she used that information to make residents fall in line. For those who still rebelled, COBS would sometimes notify their probation officer or kick them out of the safe house entirely, sending women back to jail or to the streets. What up, Orange Man? Agent Orange. Jay, there on a court order, was later kicked out of the safe house for saying, quote, negative things, end quote, about the program, according to a text Bartholomew sent her. So apparently this J person has a text from Paula Bartholomew basically telling her she's kicked out of the safe house because she said negative things about the program. Isolated and controlled, residents were then made to do Bartholomew's bidding, including representing Cobbs at public events, sometimes sharing information about their trafficking experience with the public when they didn't feel comfortable doing so. When they didn't feel comfortable doing so. In the last 4 years, a for-profit company linked to COBS has received Medicaid reimbursements totaling nearly $2.6 million, a figure that includes reimbursements for some clients who didn't stay in a safe house. A detailed review of medical records and interviews with residents indicates that the program would routinely bill for case management services for short car rides, a practice not allowed under federal regulations. Residents felt they had no choice but to go on those rides. Quote, "That sounds like it's fraud," end quote, said Stephen Teller, a whistleblower attorney based in Seattle who reviewed Investigative West's analysis. Teller has extensive experience representing those exposing fraud under the False Claims Act, a federal law that allows individuals with information about fraud to sue on the government's behalf. Sidebar. Listen, we all know what happened in Minnesota. The Medicaid fraud that was occurring out there. This is the same thing. They're billing Medicaid for all of these alleged car rides they're giving people back and forth to doctor's appointments and shit. Meanwhile, there is no person and they're not driving a car to any doctor's appointments. Right? And then the car rides that they're giving them, they're not even supposed to be giving them, actually, because it's not allowed under federal regulations. So a detailed review of medical records and interviews with residents indicates that the program would routinely bill for case management services for short car rides, Practice not allowed under federal regulation. Residents felt they had no choice than to go along with it. In interviews with Investigate West, Bartholomew said Cobbs does not force residents into treatment at any one company. She stressed that the complaints from some former residents of the safe houses do not reflect the positive work Cobbs does every day, noting that one state agency received written complaints from residents and allowed Cobbs to continue operating. Well, see? They complained about me, and nothing happened. They still let me operate. No, darling. Actually, what happened is Idaho State Police, along with Dept of Homeland Security, came and put eyes on you. And honeypotted you, is what it sounds like. Just my opinion. Just my opinion. Just my opinion. These are just my opinions. Sounds like Paula here got honeypotted by Vickie Gooch. It's just my opinion. I'm being dead serious. We'll see why when we're done here. Don't worry. You'll get it. Let's see. She declined to answer questions about potential Medicaid and grant fraud. Well, of course she did. She declined to answer, right? So according to her, one state agency received written complaints from residents and allowed Cobbs to continue operating. And she declined to answer questions about potential Medicaid and grant fraud. Quote, "We're doing some good stuff," she said. "We're taking care of some people," end quote. Bartholomew today sits at the center of a network of influence on state policy to push legislation, work with police, and lead a coalition of anti-trafficking efforts in the Treasure Valley in southwest Idaho. Investigate West interviewed several dozen people, including former Safe House residents and employees, current and former board members, police and service providers who have worked with Cobbs, whistleblower attorneys, federal investigators, and national experts on issues such as trafficking, Medicaid billing, and nonprofit governance. Oh, okay. To verify claims about the conditions of the safe houses, Investigate West reviewed formal complaints and inspection records, medical billing records, government contracts, and transaction with Cobbs, court records, and social media accounts. Megan Landon, a former employee at one of the safe houses, said the survivors speaking up about the program now describe Cobbs being the same way she remembers it in 2021. When Landon quit because she believed Cobbs was hurting women. One of the residents she worked with was left homeless and returned to sex work because Bartholomew evicted her without a transition plan, Landon said. Quote, "Every client I witnessed," Landon said, "ended up going back to the situation they came from or worse." Maybe that's why I'm having problems. It is like monsooning outside, friends. Hopefully we're still good here. Are we good? We good? We Gucci? I hope you can hear us. And I didn't get a text. Yeah, it's monsooning where I am, friends, just so you know. Okay, so if I cut out a little bit or something, I'm sorry. We're getting some wild weather here. That's like crazy rain out there right now. Okay. Are we good? Typically Unique, hello. Twiz, hello. Amy Conway, hello. Inside Your Bones, what up, everyone? Hopefully you can hear me. Last 24 on the mic, hello. I'm checking chat now, friends. Typically Unique, hello. I hope you guys can hear me. That rain is coming down like crazy. Ooh, and it's thundering. Wait, what? Lightning, thunder, rain. And it's lightning. Okay. Guys, just so you know, if it goes down south, I'm sorry. Elantra Bugguard, hello. No, I don't go live from Starbucks, dickhead. Okay. I'm not even on Wi-Fi. We're having severe thunderstorms right now where I am. And usually I just go live from my phone, actually. You can hear the rain? Last 24 on the mic. Yeah, it's wild. And we're getting some thunder. I didn't realize that. I didn't even know we were getting that weather. Elantra Bugguard. Always gotta be a dick. It's fucking Jeff, isn't it? I think that's who Elantra Bugguard is. It's Jeff H. You know, or one of those assholes. It's always one of them. Yeah, see, I was right. I knew it. It's Jeff H, isn't it? I'm not on Wi-Fi, dickhead. I'm on regular internet. What makes you think me going to Starbucks is going to be better? It's because of my computer. I've already said this repeatedly. I'm waiting on a whole new setup. Don't you worry. Jeff. I don't know why you're so worried about what fucking internet I'm on. You know what I mean? And you need like 12 accounts to go to people's channels you don't even like. Just so you can say some snarky ass rude comment that has nothing to do with anything we're talking about. Talking about, oh, go use the Wi-Fi at Starbucks. Hey, Jeff, do you want to talk about how, Idaho here has a problem with human trafficking and these safe houses that they don't even need licenses to operate out of, and you know what I mean? The victims are coming forward left and right, and these safe houses ended up under full throttle investigation by Idaho State Police and Department of Homeland Security, and it happens to be Vickie Gooch, who co-sponsored the stings. I mean, I'm just saying, don't worry about my internet. My internet's fine, I think. I think we're good. Rolo, what up? Hopefully you guys can hear me. Right turn, Clyde. Hello. Thanks for the friendly reaction, for me trying to help you. Yeah, I'm sure, Jeff. I'm so sure that what you're actually here to do is just help me. I'm sure. I'm so sure that that's exactly what you're here to do. You just want to help us, right? You're our brother. You're our sister. You just want to help us. It's all like kumbaya, right? We're all friends. Microblue, hello. I'm just messing with you, Jeff H. I'm gonna bust your balls every time you pop in under some random extra account. I have one account. Just before we continue reading here, if you see anybody on any other platform, okay, I have my X, I have here, I have my Discord, okay, but if you see like anybody trying to, share this stuff anywhere else, I don't have no backup channel. I don't use the TikTok. If you happen to have the TikTok and you see people trying to share my content over on the TikTok, you can go ahead and let them know that they can go ahead and Cashapp me any money they've made off of using my content, you know what I'm saying, over there on the TikToks. You can go ahead and Cashapp that shit, or Venmo, okay? And then don't forget to report them for stealing my content and using it, because I don't have the TikTok. Anyways, let's get back into this. Okay, so here we go. You cannot leave. See, there you go, Jeff H. You cannot leave. I'm kidding. You can leave. In October 2022, Franky was picked up and driven to the safe house by Bartholomew and a police escort. Interesting. In October of 2022, Franky was picked up and driven to the safe house personally by Bartholomew and a police escort. The last time she'd gotten out of prison, in 2020, Franky ended up being trafficked shortly after by a guy she met through a friend. He gave her rides and money, and she felt like she owed him. Before she knew it, she said, he made her do things, quote, she didn't want to do. She was sold for sex out of a hotel, she said, and he shoved drugs down her throat if she wouldn't comply. That's who she was running from when cops found her at the church that day in 2021. So, right, the lady who bit the cop's knee. Quote, it's the control, manipulation, and fear, Franky said. It's not being able to do anything outside your own will. You're under their command. And if you move the wrong way in the trafficking world, you either get beat or you end up dead, end quote. Franky welcomed the idea of being in a truly safe house because she still feared he'd find her. but she'd hoped to be released from probation by January 2024, so she could leave Idaho entirely. All right, so Franky at this point is like, okay, wait, so, like, I was already trafficked, and now the fucking place that's supposed to be helping me is trafficking me again, and it seems to be, like, the police and this lady and the probation officers and the judges, they're all, like, right, recycling. They're just cycling and cycling these people over and over and over again. And she's like, I just want to leave Idaho entirely when I get off my damn probation in January 2024. She was under strict court orders, however, to follow and graduate the Cobbs rehabilitation program first. So she's under strict court orders from her judge, her drug court judge, to follow and graduate the Cobbs rehab program. In the first month, Franky entered what staff calls the blackout period. No phone, no going out in public, no connection with society. She had to give all of her things to the program. She couldn't buy her own food, and Franky said they wouldn't let her have her tarot cards for her to practice her religion. Possible violation of federal anti-discrimination laws since COBS receives federal funding. Sidebar, excuse me, you took her tarot cards? You didn't let her practice her religion? Interesting. Very interesting. Isn't that like what a cult will do? This is just me throwing out brainworms. I'm just asking questions. I'm not saying it's a cult. I'm just asking questions, right? But isn't that kind of one of the, first signs of like a cult, right? They have you denounce and get rid of like everyone you know and any religion you thought you knew and blah, 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 right? I think they also call it like their dark period or whatever. You have to go dark from everything. Interesting. She calls it the blackout period. And they don't let you practice your religion, apparently. It says it's a possible violation of federal anti-discrimination laws since COBS receives federal funding. Right, exactly. But Franky, along with several other residents and employees who spoke to Investigate West, said it was surprising how unsafe the safe houses actually seemed to be. She lived with 5 people in a 3-bedroom house, but there was no full-time supervisor. Women found ways to communicate with traffickers, or they engaged in sex work voluntarily while living at the safe house, residents and former employees say. Some used drugs. One resident in Nampa, of course Nampa, overdosed on fentanyl and nearly died with no supervisor on site. Residents were able to save her life using Narcan, Franky said. Franky saw a therapist, but she said she had no choice but to use one provided by Advanced Clinical Trauma Services, the for-profit company owned by Bartholomew's son, Tyler Bell. Group therapy was run by Bartholomew, too, the records confirm. So she gets to bill for group therapy. He gets to bill for whatever trauma services he's providing, right? And they're both in business together. So, like, she gets the trafficking victims and she sends them to him, and he gets to bill the Medicaid, and she gets to bill the Medicaid, and they get to take the food stamps, and they get to take whatever benefits the victims get and withhold it and call it a blackout period. Well, see, this is what you have to do. Within days of Franky arriving at the safe house, the company, referred to as AXE, started billing her Medicaid. And they had Franky go with other residents to a local substance use recovery center. On each 20-minute car ride, she was crammed in with several other residents, and AXE would claim more than $100 for targeted case management under her name, Investigate West found. So for a 20-minute car ride, they billed her $100 and they crammed her in with several other residents, so each resident is probably also being charged the same. Their insurance is also being charged the same. Right? So you stuff 6 of them in a car, charge $100 to you. That's $600 every 20 minute for each 20-minute car ride. Records suggest that AXE billed the other residents in the car for case management too. In just over a year, Franky alone brought the company roughly $25,000 from Medicaid, with $8,560 in case management reimbursements alone, records show. She doesn't remember getting real case management more than once or twice. The case management stuff that, like, Bartholomew is supposed to be doing. Right? I think. Bell declined to comment when asked to explain ACT's billing of Medicaid. Instead, Bell sent a cease and desist letter to investigate West through his lawyer, calling the allegations of illegal Medicaid billing practices, quote, categorically false and entirely without merit, end quote. Eventually, Franky was moved to a different safe house, also run by Cobbs, with fewer restrictions. She was able to get a job. Amanda Carpenter, who worked as Bartholomew's assistant at Cobbs in 2023, this is following Gooch, now we're going into 2023, Amanda Carpenter, who worked as Bartholomew's assistant at Cobbs in 2023, said Franky served as a mentor to some of the other residents. Franky had a car at this point and was expected to drive other residents to appointments. Franky said she was not paid. So Bartholomew is having Franky here, okay, she's serving as a mentor to other residents, and because she had the car, she was expected to drive other residents to appointments, even though she wasn't paid for it. At times, it felt like residents were forced to do work for Bartholomew. Residents say they were expected to attend meets at a gymnastics business, Gem State Gymnastics, owned by Bell, her son. Interesting. At times, it felt like residents were forced to do work for Bartholomew. Residents say they were expected to attend meets at a gymnastics business, Gem State Gymnastics, owned by Bell. Other days, residents were expected to work at an animal farm for, quote, therapeutic purposes, when in reality, residents were shoveling manure without pay, multiple residents said. Bartholomew would get angry if the residents didn't speak to the media at events or fundraisers, Franky said. In September, nearly a year into Franky's stay with Cobbs, Elizabeth Smart, the once abducted teen whose survival grabbed international headlines, came to speak at an event a short drive away in Nampa. Franky was asked to share with the public her trafficking experience before coming to Cobbs. Franky nervously described the horror she experienced dating back to her childhood to hundreds of people. Afterwards, she said she stood on stage as Bartholomew accepted a check as a donation to the nonprofit. To the public, Franky represented a Cobbs success story, but privately, Franky felt used, manipulated, and controlled. Leaving didn't feel like an option. Residents knew that those who rebelled at the safe houses were punished, kicked out onto the street, or back in jail. They felt they couldn't trust the police, who Bartholomew worked with, to identify trafficking victims on the street. Like the procurer. She's like Ghislaine, you know, has the cops like, oh, tell me all the ones that you pick up who are like, you know, are they women, are they homeless, are they struggling, you know, they're on drugs, send them my way. We'll help them. I mean, obviously, that's not how Ghislaine did it, but I mean, I wouldn't doubt that shit at all, actually. You know, behind the scenes is probably how Ghislaine and Jeffrey got a lot of people that they were able to exploit, okay, via all their little crooked-ass cop friends. Finder's fee, you know what I mean? You think they won't give a crooked cop a finder's fee? Of course they will. Of course they will. So they couldn't trust their police, because Bartholomew was working with them to identify trafficking victims. They couldn't trust their public defenders. One was actually on the Cobbs board of directors. Wonder which one. And they couldn't even trust their therapists, they said, because Bartholomew would read the counseling notes. Quote, "This is almost like being trafficked all over again," end quote, Franky said. Clear conflict. In training sessions, fundraising events, and news stories, Bartholomew presents herself as a humble yet powerful fighter of human trafficking, the head of a scrappy, underfunded nonprofit who has managed to pioneer a crucial statewide response to a growing problem. A licensed social worker, she was once the president of the Mental Health Providers Association of Idaho and has decades of experience in the field advocating on behalf of clinicians in the state legislature. Bartholomew frequently touts her partnership with law enforcement to create Idaho's first human trafficking task force. In an interview, she repeated the notion that COBS provides trauma therapy and case management services to victims of human trafficking, quote, pro bono. Well, it can't be pro bono if you're getting thousands of dollars in donations from here and there and billing Medicaid for this and billing Medicaid for that, right? It's not pro bono. You're billing all the Medicaid for it. You're billing all of the victims' insurance for it. Their state insurance or whatever it may be. So it's not pro bono. And many of these victims are coming out of there saying, actually, they withheld all of our money, our food stamps and everything, and, we weren't even allowed to use our money for, like, our own food and stuff. So, interesting. In an interview, she repeated the notion that COBS provides trauma therapy and case management services to victims of human trafficking, quote, pro bono. COBS said it serves dozens of victims each year. In a recent 6-month period, the program said it housed 39 survivors. Community donations keep them going, she said. In private, Bartholomew maintains a comfortable lifestyle. She owns a home on 10 acres valued at $1.5 million. Overlooking sprawling fields southwest of Boise. She takes her family on tropical vacations, even inquiring on her last trip to Costa Rica in May about buying property, social media posts show. A deeper look at her family businesses reveals that the safe houses she runs bring her family much more money than she lets on. COBS, which was funded in 2015, hasn't filed the annual reports to the IRS required for nonprofit status since 2017, according to IRS records. Its tax-exempt status was revoked in 2021. Though COBS continued to hold fundraising events until its status was restored the next year. COBS declined to provide tax filings for the missing years to investigate West. So I'm going to pause here. So, they're founded in 2015. They didn't file their annual reports to the IRS required for nonprofit status since 2017, right? Their tax-exempt status was revoked in 2021, but then, miraculously, it was restored the next year in 2022, right? Maybe... I'm just guessing here, is it around the same time that like Vickie Gooch and Idaho State Police and Dept of Homeland Security are we'll partner up with you to do some undercover stuff? Sure. They just miraculously had their tax-exempt status restored in 2022. Okay. It says, yet despite COBS saying publicly that it offers therapy and Bartholomew signing contracts that describe COBS as offering case management, it doesn't actually offer therapy. It's her son's for-profit, ACTS, providing those services to residents, and it's not pro bono. Exactly. The for-profit company registered with the Secretary of State's office under the name Wells and Bell LLC. It's always an LLC, man. It's always an LLC. Was opened in 2020 by her son, Bell, and Kenneth Wells, a mental health clinician who was also on the COBS board of directors. Wells said he cut off ties with both organizations in 2020 because he didn't agree with the therapeutic direction they were going in. Yeah, in 2020, that's when Dept of Homeland Security was coming into Idaho to set up their task force. My guess is Wells here Wells here, maybe he had the inside scoop and was like, yeah, let me cut these fucking ties right now, actually. Let me cut this karmic right out because, you know, spooks, feds, whoever. These are just my brainworms. I'm giving you my brainworms when I read through this, okay? These are the things that I think. Trying to read between the lines here because I'm going by the dates of when all of this got set up in that state. Okay? So Wells here got hip to the game. So Wells and Bell, LLC, Bell is the son of Bartholomew. Wells here is the guy who got hip to the fucking game and said, let me cut these ties. And he cut ties with both organizations in 2020. Same year, Department of Homeland Security is rolling into Idaho setting up their shit. Because he, quote, didn't agree with the therapeutic direction they were going in. Bell currently is on the Cobbs board, records show. One of Bartholomew's daughters is also an ACTS social worker. Interesting. Cobbs and ACTS have seemed to effectively operate as one entity since opening the first safe house in late 2020. So they opened their safe houses in late 2020, and Department of Homeland Security is like, hey, we're right behind you. We're going to set up shop too. The companies share an office space in Meridian. On social media and in news stories, employees identify themselves as working for both ACTS and COBS. ACTS clinicians are listed in photo captions as COBS employees as they pose with giant checks for the local news. Contracts for federal grant dollars meant for COBS lists Bartholomew's ACTS email. The contracts for federal grant dollars that are meant for COBS, okay, actually list her email for ACTS, her son's company. Jesus. And each new resident brings both companies more money. Now we're going to get into NAMPA. We've talked about this before on this channel. We've covered NAMPA. NAMPA is like literally Sheriff Stein's vibes, Judge Mullins vibes all over again, the more that I have looked into NAMPA. Okay. Housing one survivor alone allowed COBS to collect thousands of grant dollars. The city of Nampa, which was awarded $350,000 grant in 2021 for victim services and another $750,000 in 2023 for Idaho's Human Trafficking Task Force, has a contract with COBS to pay the nonprofit $50 a night for, quote, emergency beds. Let me come back to my chat. Listen, isn't that kind of like the same shit that was going on down with Judge Mullins, right? They were working with like those social workers and the probation officers and stuff, and they would put them up in a hotel for the night or whatever the case, and like literally, like, it's wild. It's wild. It's just, I don't know why. I'm just telling you guys. My vibes on this is like Judge Mullins all over again. It sounds insane, but holy crapola. How's my chat? Welcome in, everybody. Good to see y'all. Hope you're having a good night. It is terrifying. Rural juror, hello. Welcome on in. I got bad weather where I am, so sorry, guys. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. Oh, my God. My bad. You're right. Stupid Jeff H's comment was on the screen the whole time, wasn't it, while I was reading. Sorry, guys. My bad. Balam's Llama. Hello. Hello. Yeah, Laura Silsby. Exactly. Balam's Llama. See, you're with it. You are with it. Yeah. Nampa, Meridian. Oh, trust me, it gets worse, friends. You just wait. Wait until we get into, like, the rest. Okay. Twiz, hello. Hi, everyone. Hopefully we're good. Okay, sorry, I'll take the comments off the screen. All right, let's rip through this. We got one more to look at after this, too. Okay, so, NAMPA. Okay, NAMPA was awarded $350,000 grant in 2021, and then another $750,000 in 2023. So, pretty crazy, right? So, Bartholomew here opens up her little Cobbs facility, 2021, right? Is that what it said? I think that's what it said. They founded it in 2015, I think. Which one was the one that they opened in 2020? Either way, whatever. She's working with them. They get $350,000 in 2021, and then look at this, it doubles by 2023 to $750,000, which is for the Idaho's Human Trafficking Task Force, okay, that has this contract with Cobbs to pay the nonprofit $50 a night for emergency beds. So in 2 years, they double the amount of money that they're getting to allegedly combat human trafficking with this task force and also for victim services, right? Yet, no human traffickers have been arrested. Yet they're finding all of the trafficking victims that they're putting into Cobbs and then forcing them to go to this Cobbs place, where they can have their money taken and blah, blah, blah. Do you get what I'm saying? Do you guys see the connection here? Isn't that interesting? So no human traffickers are being busted, but yet all of these women that you're picking up and recycling through the safe houses and the facilities, they're all trafficking victims though, huh? That's interesting. How are you not catching any traffickers? How's that possible? How are they trafficking victims? So you're able to find all of the trafficking victims that you're charging with drugs and or whatever, so that you can put them up in an alleged safe house, and that safe house is going to take all their money and all their stuff, and you basically get to continuously control them and threaten them. Well, if you don't do what we say, you go back to jail, and we'll just kick you out. We'll tell the judge you didn't want to finish the program, you were combative, blah, blah, blah. Shit is wild. Absolutely wild. It just gives me Mullins vibes all over again. Alright, so let's continue. When Bartholomew, as the Cobbs director, refers residents to herself in her role as a licensed social worker at ACTS, that's a conflict of interest according to Idaho administrative rules. When Investigative West presented a situation like it to Delmar Stone, the executive director of the Idaho chapter of the National Association of Social Workers, he didn't hesitate, though he made clear that he was commenting only hypothetically. Quote, she's profiting from something, a vulnerable population, and they're not getting any alternative other than receiving services, which is in a for-profit situation. A peer group would look at that and say there is clear conflict, end quote, Stone said. The Idaho Board of Social Work Examiners could discipline Bartholomew up to suspending or pulling the license. The blurred lines between the two companies could also constitute both grant fraud and Medicaid fraud due to a potential misrepresentation of services to the federal government in order to receive the funds. If Bartholomew, as a person billing Medicaid at a separate company, has the power to influence whether a client can stay at Cobbs, then it could be a violation of the False Claims Act, said Ari Yampolsky, a founding partner of Whistleblower Partners, which advocates for those exposing corporate misconduct. Quote, it seems like there very well could be a conflict of interest, end quote. Quote, if the for-profit has a financial incentive to keep people in the nonprofit facility in order for the nonprofit to continue getting reimbursement, end quote. Right. that would be a conflict of interest. In an interview, Bartholomew declined to explain the link between Cobbs and Axe. She downplayed her role at Cobbs, objecting to the notion that she, quote, runs the nonprofit she founded, though she's identified publicly as the executive director and signs her name under that title in government documents. Right, sidebar, Paula, darling, so you don't run the place, but yet the Idaho State Police and Department of Homeland Security are fucking elbowing up with you to launch off these undercover trafficking stings in conjunction with you, even though you don't run the place. The victims all came to you from the sting. What do you mean? They partnered up with you specifically. Okay. All right. So even though she's identified publicly as the executive director and signs her name under that title in government documents, she claims she does not run the nonprofit. And she minimized her role at Axe, telling Investigate West she's more of a, quote, consultant and doesn't provide therapy. When Investigative West noted that records show her billing Medicaid as an Axe clinician for group therapy sessions attended by Safe House residents for years, she backtracked. She was not doing it as a, quote, as an Axe clinician, she insisted, just as a person. So she tried to deny it, and then Investigate West noted the records to her that shows she's billing Medicaid as an Axe clinician for group therapy sessions attended by the Safe House residents for years. She backtracked and was like, well, actually, wasn't it as a clinician, just as a person. But she was more than that for those at the safe houses. In interviews of employees and residents with Investigate West, Bartholomew was described as, quote, the mother figure, or the trauma mama, end quote. She took care of everything for them, but they knew not to cross her. 5 current or former trafficking survivors who received individual therapy from an Axe counselor, along with former employees, say that Bartholomew would read the notes their therapist took. They say the information was used to keep residents from defying Cobbs, often keeping them in the safe house. The result was that residents were receiving billable services longer. Quote, Paula really uses clients' vulnerabilities to shame them into submission in front of the other girls in the safe house, end quote, said Landon, the former employee. Quote, the way pimps see you. Amethyst, hello, how you doing? Welcome in, everyone. Sorry if I'm missing you. I'm in another window reading this to you, so, welcome, guys. Thanks for hanging out here. Suzanne B., you're right. It is exploitation, 100%. All right. In September, a woman named Allie arrived at the safe house. She just endured 3 brutal months of trafficking under 3 different pimps. She wanted justice for her traffickers and safety for herself. Bartholomew told her she could find it at Cobbs. She worked directly with the FBI, and the safe house was a witness protection program. Allie, 25, recalls Bartholomew saying. So Bartholomew told her, okay. So in September, a woman named Allie arrives at the Cobbs safe house. She had just endured 3 months of trafficking under 3 different pimps. She wanted justice for her traffickers and safety for herself. Bartholomew told her she could find it at Cobbs. She worked directly with the FBI, and the safe house was a witness protection program. This is what Paula told this victim. Quote, you're going to feel like you're trafficked, but that's not the case, end quote. Holy shit. Wow. So even Paula here is like, listen, actually, it's going to feel like we're trafficking you all over again, but that's really not what's happening. She didn't even try to hide it. She actually told them. She told this chick, it's going to feel like you're being trafficked all over again, but I promise that's not what I'm doing. I mean, that's actually probably what, you know. Like, if they have to tell you. Interesting. Okay. You're gonna feel like you're trafficked, but that's not the case, Bartholomew said, according to Allie. Quote, pimps take all your things and tell you they love you and care for you, and they really don't. And that's what it looks like we're doing, but we're not doing that, end quote. Allie trusted her, but it became difficult to ignore the parallels between Cobbs and her traffickers. Allie's public defender referred her to Cobbs, which typically finds new safe house residents through the criminal justice system. Allie's first trafficker found her through the criminal justice system too, while she was in jail for driving under the influence. Bartholomew convinced her, so her own public defender is the one referring her to Cobbs. Right? So the public defenders, the police, and the judges all work together to send these people to these places when they pick them up. Bartholomew convinced her that Cobbs, and only Cobbs, had what Allie needed. Her first trafficker, too, sold her that idea that if Allie, recently cut off from family and staying in a shelter, went with him, her problems would be solved. He didn't mention anything about sex, she said. Cobbs controlled her food, her transportation, and her social interactions. Allie's pimps did, too, down to the color of her hair. Today, she's dyed her hair red simply because one of her pimps wouldn't have let her. Okay, so she dyed it red because they wouldn't let her. Quote, I fucked up again, end quote, Allie thought a week into her stay at Cobbs. Quote, it was definitely like Paula was the pimp and a couple of the girls were her bottom bitches and she wanted all of us to stay there and be there, end quote. Oh my God. Paula's like literally the madam. I mean, that's how this lady's describing her anyway, right? Like the madam. Holy crapola. She's literally like the madam. That's wild. Oh my goodness. So this poor Allie girl here, this victim, within a week of her staying at Cobbs, is thinking to herself, man, I fucked up again. She says it was definitely like Paula was the pimp and a couple of the girls were her bottom bitches and she wanted all of us to stay there and be there, end quote. Bartholomew said residents can leave whenever they want. Quote, I always tell the girls, there's the door, end quote, she said. For many residents, however, that would be considered a probation violation that could land them back in jail. But as Bartholomew argued, quote, it's still a choice, end quote, but it's not a choice. They're court ordered to complete the program. You telling them there's the door and if they leave, it's not a choice, actually. Stay here or go back to jail. That's your choice. That's not a choice. Especially when it feels like you're trafficking them all over again, and more than one is expressing that concern, right? Like, just because they're victims of trafficking doesn't mean you get to control them as though you're the madam of the brothel or you're the pimp, you know, of the harem here or whatever. That's wild. That is insane. Allie here says, yeah, she says that, but it's more like, there's the door. Go. Do it. Watch. I dare you. Oh my God. It's not unusual for safe houses to impose conditions on residents to preserve the safety of the house. Among right, of course, right. Can't have guys over, you can't bring anybody in, blah, blah, blah. Get all that, but wait, you can only go outside to vape? You can't have a phone? You can't buy your own food? Know what I mean? Like, I don't know about all that, but especially when you're taking all this federal money and blah, blah, blah. But what do I know? I don't know shit. As always, if you're new here, I know nothing. Okay? I don't know shit. It's not unusual for safe houses to impose conditions on residents to preserve the safety of the house. Among anti-trafficking service providers, rules such as taking away a survivor's phone or installing cameras in the house fall into a gray area. Right. When is it necessary for safety? And when is it taking away a survivor's agency? Right. But experts say there are important distinctions. Residents should always give written consent and know what they're getting into. And the rules should be consistent for each resident. At Cobbs, who, by the way, doesn't need a license in the state of Idaho to operate a safe house, at Cobbs, residents and employees say that wasn't the case. Some women would be kicked out for saying the wrong thing, but others did drugs in the house and were allowed to stay. Shobana Powell, CEO and founder of a consulting company for entities working to end gender-based violence and human trafficking, said the use of unpredictable expectations is one of many methods of psychological coercion used by traffickers. It often leaves survivors feeling insecure, as if they're walking on eggshells, and when they fail to comply with unrealistic expectations, they blame themselves. Quote, "When we talk about re-exploitation, it doesn't always mean that there's trafficking happening again, but there's elements of the same psychological coercion that's happening," end quote, Powell said. Isolation is another method of coercion. So is controlling access to food. And then there are threats of deportation, losing custody of children, or jail. Right. You don't have a choice when you're being coerced, right? You don't have access to your own food. You're being told, well, I mean, stay or go, but if you go to jail, or you lose custody of your kids, or you might get deported. We may have to, turn you over to ICE. Quote, "These girls knew they were going to get maybe 3 months of housing and food coverage. They didn't have any other support network," end quote, Landon said. Quote, "They were wholly dependent on Paula. Could they have said no? Yes. And then what were they going to do?" End quote. In late 2023, Allie demanded that they allow her to leave just over a month into her time at Cobbs. It took hours for them to give her back her stuff, but legally they couldn't keep her there. It took them hours to give her back her stuff, huh? Her money, her food stamp card, her whatever, right? Her phone. Hours? It took hours to give her back her stuff, huh? Quote, "It was the way pimps see you," Allie said. "You're literally a thing and you have a bag of money over your head," end quote. Unnecessary services. Though some states, Washington for example, do have licensing requirements for a safe house, many others like Idaho have none, said Rachel Carper, Director of Programs and Operations for the National Trafficking Sheltered Alliance, an organization that accredits programs based on certain standards. Quote, "There's very little regulation around programs that serve adults," end quote, said Carper. "A lot of states don't have anything at all. It's basically the wild, wild west." Interesting. Federal investigators in recent years have uncovered and taken down a surge in criminal schemes across the country among sober homes or addiction treatment centers. At the center of these schemes is the fact that clients at those homes are a, quote, "captive audience," said Patrick Newbert, a commander for the U.S. Health and Human Services Office of the Inspector General Investigative Unit. And since Medicare and Medicaid don't directly pay for recovery housing, these facilities would find other services to bill for, right? They can't say it's recovery housing. Sometimes that also might include unnecessary drug tests. So they'll bill for all kinds of shit, including unnecessary drug tests. Quote, "What we see is the unnecessary services being rendered to essentially fund a person to stay in this recovery housing," end quote. Back in 2021, when the first Cobbs safe house had just opened, yeah, I was right, in 2021, when the first Cobbs safe house had just opened, Landon remembers being told to log time with clients for Medicaid billing when she didn't believe she should, such as driving a resident to church. Other times, case managers were told they could bill for making phone calls for clients. That further raised questions because she thought she could only bill for case management if she met with the client in person. In an interview, Bartholomew confirmed that ACTS billed Medicaid for case management for driving residents around. Quote, a lot of the stuff and the steps and the steps in the treatment plan is happening in a vehicle, yes, Bartholomew said. Quote, it's easier to discuss and have things in a vehicle versus in a home, end quote. Really? So first it was, no, we're not doing it. Then it was, we are doing it, but I'm not doing it as a clinician. I'm just doing it as a person. And now it's, well, I mean, yeah, we're billing for all the stuff and that's happening in the cars, but like, it's because, you know, everything, it's easier. It's just easier to discuss and have these things in the vehicle versus the home. So a lot of the stuff and the steps and the treatment plan is happening in a vehicle. Vehicles like that, where are you bringing them? Such as driving a resident to church. Where else are you bringing them, though? Because if they're not like allowed to leave the house and stuff, and they're not allowed to go to work or have a job or whatever the case may be, like, whoa, where are you driving them to? Other than like doctor's appointments or something. I don't know. It's very, very, I don't like it. I just don't like it. At all. So according to her, yeah, no, it's just easier to do it all in the vehicle, actually. And that's why we bill for the vehicle stuff, the driving hours, as case management. All right, but the case management under federal regulations is supposed to involve detailed coordination and planning of services for people who could not navigate the system on their own. State guidelines also said that, quote, a case manager may not be reimbursed for any transportation of the member to and from appointments, end quote. Franky's Medicaid records, which she shared with Investigate West, indicate that ACTS billed under her name for, quote, targeted case management 75 times over the course of more than a year. Unless there's prior authorization, providers in Idaho are only allowed to bill for 60 hours of targeted case management in 1 year. ACTS billed Franky for roughly double that threshold. Wow. Look at this shit. Targeted case management. The mental health company racked up targeted case management reimbursements, sometimes simply for carpooling human trafficking survivors around town. Likely Medicaid fraud, expert says. It looks like $664,000 is what her son's ACTS place she billed, or they billed. $664,000. Advanced Clinical Trauma Services brings in more Medicaid dollars for case management than any other service. This is Bartholomew's son's place. The majority of those charges came in the first few months of Franky's time at the safe house on days that Franky was driven to the local recovery center for substance abuse treatment. Oh, okay, so they drive them to the, okay. An analysis of records suggests that ACTS billed each individual in the car for the drive to the recovery center. Right. Yeah, they'll put like 5 or 6 of them in the car and bill for each one. Yampolsky, the whistleblower attorney, thinks it could be Medicaid fraud. Quote, that seems problematic, he said. It would violate the False Claims Act if you were to establish that it was intentional, that they were billing for a code they knew they weren't providing. End quote. When pressed on this by Investigate West, Bartholomew deflected responsibility, saying she's, quote, not on the Medicaid side of things. Okay. While there's no regulatory body that monitors conditions of adult homes, the allegations of fraud could trigger criminal investigations. It sure did. Federal investigations with the Office of the Inspector General would have the ability to investigate grant fraud or Medicaid fraud. They declined to confirm or deny whether any such investigation is active into COBS. Well, yeah, they're not going to tell you if they're doing undercover fucking investigations. The Idaho AG's office would have jurisdiction to look into the conflicts of interest involving the nonprofit. It could also investigate allegations of fraud through its Medicaid fraud control unit. In fact, the office received a complaint in 2022 regarding ethical concerns and violations of victim privacy at Cobbs, but the complainant told Investigate West they never received a follow-up call and that clearly nothing came of it, end quote. Interesting. So AG, Idaho AG in 2022 at the time, that is who, Jeff Nye? Was that Jeff Nye in 2022? Right? I believe. Miss Q, thank you for your super sticker. Sorry guys, I'm just coming back over to check my chat and checking real quick. Thank you for your super sticker. Truly appreciate you. I really hope you guys can hear me, man. I really do. Really do. So, in 2022, the AG's office, Idaho Attorney General's office, which I believe would have been Jeff Nye at the time, did receive a complaint in 2022 regarding ethical concerns and violations of victim privacy at Cobbs. Maybe this is why Gooch and ISP and DHS wanted to go, cozy up, get a little peeky poo at their operation over there that they had going on over at Cobbs, huh? Maybe that's why they wanted to just go take a little peeky poo at what they were doing. Let's see. The Idaho Attorney General's office declined several requests to answer questions about Cobbs or how it investigates Medicaid fraud or conflicts of interest generally. Since October of 2023, Franky and Allie each submitted formal complaints about Cobbs to the state agency administering funding to the program, but neither complaint led to consequences for Cobbs. Local and state police agencies, along with judges and public defenders, continue to refer victims to Cobbs. So this was in, 2023. They were still referring victims and everything there, but just don't worry. Franky wasn't too surprised that nobody took her complaint seriously. She and most of the other safe house residents have a criminal history. She knows that means she's easily dismissed. Quote, we're just drug addicts, we're felons, we're not credible, and she uses that to her advantage, end quote, Franky said of Bartholomew. In December 2023, Franky's probation was almost finished. Only days were left. And to date, her case manager at the safe house reported that Franky had been making, quote, amazing progress. When she got out, Franky wanted to open her own safe house. It would help survivors in a way that Cobbs didn't, she thought. But Franky couldn't hide her frustration. She was paying a small amount in rent to Cobbs each month, and they wanted to increase it. She grew tired of seeing other residents manipulated and controlled. She would mutter under her breath and flip off security cameras in the house. Good for you, Franky. Finally, during a group session with Bartholomew and other house residents, Franky shared her frustration. Afterwards, Bartholomew told Franky's probation officer about it, reporting it as, quote, inappropriate. Quote, Bartholomew stated that Franky needs to work harder at staying in her lane and not involving herself in the matters of other residents in the house, end quote, probation notes say. In text, Bartholomew scolded Franky for the, quote, pushback and for telling everyone how terrible our program is and how I lie, end quote. Days later, Bartholomew found out that Franky wanted to open her own safe house. Cobbs reported a probation violation, alleging Franky had been defiant for months and had been bad-mouthing the program and had been texting with a felon. It meant that on December 26, 2014, months since she first entered a Cobbs safe house, Franky was put back in jail. Right, because Paula reported her for a probation violation. She had just days left. She was about to be done. A month later, Franky's probation was reinstated for another 2 years. She had to start all over in her attempt to rebuild her life. The Ada County judge who made the final order, Nancy Raskin, admonished Franky, warning that she needed to, quote, really be careful about bad-mouthing the safe house. Really? Then she added one more unwritten rule of probation. It sounded as if it came from Bartholomew herself. Quote, "You," Baskin said, "need to not speak badly about the COBS program." End quote. This is what Ada County Judge Nancy Baskin said to a human trafficking victim who was reporting that this facility is actually like being trafficked all over again, who only had days left. So Ada County Judge Nancy Baskin told a trafficking victim survivor. Isn't that wild? Isn't that absolutely insane? Okay, so that was that one. That article is from July 15th, if I remember correctly. Go back up here. Yeah, this was published in July 15th, 2024. But obviously, Investigate West had been doing this little, undercover investigation or whatever they were doing here. So I'll stop sharing that one. Everything is linked in the description of the live. We got one more we're going to look at. So we already looked at the first one where we learned about Vickie Gooch, 2022 stuff. We just went through more of the 2022 stuff. Everything going on in 2021, when the first safe house was open, etc. Okay, going into 2022. Okay. Let's go into the next one here. We got one more to look at, and then I'm going to share something else with you that kind of links it all together. Okay. This one was published not long after the one we just looked at. That one was July 15th. This was July 31st. So this was put out like 2 weeks later. Well, look at that. The feds open an investigation into the Idaho anti-trafficking nonprofit after Investigate West exposes potential fraud. Well, would you look at that? Okay. So, as we find out, COBS starts to crop up in 2021 in Idaho, open up their first facility. They established themselves in 2020 and then opened their first safe house in 2021, right? At the same time that Paula Bartholomew and her COBS place is establishing themselves in 2020, well, the Department of Homeland Security decides we're going to establish ourselves here too to combat human trafficking. We're going to launch our own task force. Okay? And then she opens this place in 2021. They get the safe houses open, and then wouldn't you know, towards the end of 2021, going into 2022, that's when like Idaho State Police and Vickie Gooch and people like that are starting to take notice of COBS and Paula Bartholomew and X. And they're able to, get their tax exempt status reinstated for COBS, and oh yeah. And all the while, in my opinion, they're being monitored. So while Paula's doing all of this, it is my very humble opinion that the entire time, from the moment this woman established herself with that stuff, with COBS in Idaho, she was being monitored by Department of Homeland Security. 100%. It's just my opinion. Just my opinion, I don't know shit. But spooks were all over this. All over this. In my opinion. Alright, so now we see here that, well, after all of that stuff and all of these reports and, victims and other people reporting this shit, Vickie Gooch has done her undercover trafficking sting with them the fall of 2022 alongside OUR. Not long after, rolling into 2023 is where we find out, well, it happens to be Paula Bartholomew here and her son end up under investigation. Their little Cobb's place and axe and whatever, but then also Tim Ballard, the head of OUR Rescue, who Paula Bartholomew was all cozied up with in Idaho, well, he has to resign due to all the allegations of sexual assault and everything that go on with him. And OUR picks up sticks out of Idaho, and they all of a sudden just stop doing all of their outreach and everything in Idaho, and they go to none other than fucking Minneapolis, right? Another hotbed of Medicaid fraud, trafficking, safe houses, driving patients, to and fro and billing for it. We know all the fraud that was uncovered there. So, just keep all the dates in mind, friend. This is why I told you these are my brainworms. You do not have to agree with anything I'm saying, or these are just my opinions and my brainworms. But it appears to me that Cobbs here, they've been being monitored. OUR and Cobbs, it would appear, in my very humble opinion. Spooks have had eyes on both of those organizations probably since like 2020, maybe even earlier. Probably since they established themselves is my guess. But I don't know. Definitely 2020. All right, so let's get into this next one. Hopefully everybody's having a good night. Keeping y'all entertained. Detective Mowry. What up, Detective Mowry? A while. Yeah, Suzanne B., it is effing appalling. You're right. It's fucking appalling is right. So appalling. So let's get into it. Spooks doing spook shit. Let's see what the spooks were doing. I love spooks. Spooks, if you're listening, I love you. I'm just a civilian, but all you gotta do is make me an app so I can catch them all like Pokemon. Okay, make it a game for me. And, that's all. That's all you need to do, spooks. You don't have to waste your time fucking with my audio. Whichever spook is assigned to listen to me and monitor me and whatever, just go back and tell your buddies that all I need you to do is make it like a game for me, okay? So I can hunt them all down and catch them all like Pokemon. And you can just contract with me as a civilian. You can totally give me a civilian contract to do it. I know you're listening. All right, so here we go, friends. As more whistleblowers come forward, federal authorities have launched an investigation of an influential Idaho nonprofit accused of exploiting human trafficking victims in a Medicaid fraud scheme. The alleged scheme involving Community Outreach Behavioral Services, or COBS, a nonprofit that says it provides trauma care to trafficking victims in Idaho, was exposed in a series of Investigate West stories published in early July. Those articles included accounts from victims and former employees who said Cobb's founder, Paula Bartholomew, used manipulative tactics to recruit and keep victims in safe houses. Once there, a for-profit company owned by Bartholomew's son billed their Medicaid insurance in ways that experts say likely amounted to fraud. Former employees say Bartholomew, a licensed social worker, is in practice the one running both Cobb's and her son's company, Advanced Clinical Trauma Services, or ACTS. The reporting has triggered a probe from the United States Department of Health and Human Services, Office of the Inspector General, which contacted the Idaho AG's office days after the articles were published. The state attorney general's office confirmed in a statement to Investigate West that it would assist in the investigation. Bartholomew did not respond to a request for comment. The Idaho Cobbs Facebook page weeks ago called Investigate West reporting, quote, slander, and the accusations false, without identifying specific inaccuracies. Bartholomew's son, Tyler Bell, the owner of Advanced Clinical Trauma Services, provided a statement via email that also called the reporting false. He said that ACTS adheres to all applicable laws and regulatory guidelines concerning Medicaid billing, that the company recently passed a Medicaid audit with no findings of fraud or unethical billing practices, and that he's confident federal investigators will confirm our compliance, just as a recent Medicaid audit did. He did not specify which allegations in the previous reporting were false, nor did he provide a copy of the Medicaid audit when asked. Prior articles reported, based on a detailed analysis of Medicaid records and interviews with former employee and residents, that ACTS billed the Medicaid plans of Cobbs safehouses Safehouse residents for targeted case management for short car rides, which would be a violation of federal regulations. The HHS Office of Inspector General conducts criminal, civil, and administrative investigations, including cases against recent sober home fraud schemes targeting vulnerable populations. The office also has found problems with Medicaid reimbursements for targeted case management in nearly a dozen states across the country in recent years, forcing states to pay the federal government back millions of dollars for the unallowable claims. And then this is just where another, okay, for me, guys, I was like, of course. In 2022, Montana had to pay back $5 million in overpayments. And earlier this year, Alabama was asked to refund $5 million in case management overpayments. In 2022, Montana had to pay back $5 million in overpayments. The auditor's report from Alabama singled out case management claims for transportation as a common unallowable service under state and federal regulations, noting that some providers should not have been reimbursed for driving clients to appointments, and in one case to the fair for hot dogs and soda. Cobbs has been integral to Idaho's, I'm getting so tired, to Idaho's human trafficking response in recent years. The small nonprofit works with local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies on Idaho's first anti-human trafficking task force, which was launched in 2020. Idaho agencies have secured more than $1 million in federal grant dollars to fight trafficking since then, based in part on the victim services Cobbs says that it provides. Cobbs receives a small portion of that money to provide emergency beds and hold public training sessions. Victims who are caught in the criminal justice system, often for crimes related to having been a victim of trafficking, are sent to Cobbs safehouses on probation orders. Several former safehouse residents and employees said that Cobbs isolated and controlled trafficking survivors, and that the residents were expected to boost Cobbs' reputation publicly or risk being sent back to jail in retaliation. Idaho State Senator Melissa Wintrow, a member of the Idaho Governor's Human Trafficking Subcommittee, said the state should rethink its approach of court mandating human trafficking victims to programs like Cobbs. Quote, "Victims have already been exploited. They've already been traumatized. They've already been tricked, manipulated, mandated, and threatened. We should not be in that business of potentially and unintentionally re-traumatizing them through another mandate." End quote. Despite Investigate West reporting, state and local law enforcement agencies on the Human Trafficking Task Force with Cobbs have defended the organization. The Idaho State Police said in a statement to Investigate West that, quote, "does not have a statement about the series, and that current assertions have not impacted our work or interaction with Cobbs," end quote. The Nampa Police Department, which has worked closely with Cobbs on sting operations and is also on the task force, declined to answer whether it would continue partnering with the nonprofit. Nampa Police spokesperson Carmen Boger said in response to Investigate West that she'd, quote, "visited with the leadership in our persons crime unit, and there is inaccurate information in your series of articles," end quote. She did not respond to email or phone messages asking to specify what information was inaccurate. Nampa Police Department and Cobbs. Interesting. Homeland Security Investigations, an agency within the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, is part of Idaho's Human Trafficking Task Force along with Cobbs. But Stephen Schrank, Deputy Special Agent in charge of Homeland Security investigations in the Pacific Northwest, emphasized that it has never had a formal agreement with Cobbs, and said the agency has not had, quote, direct dealings with Cobbs in a number of years. Right, well, sidebar, because Department of Homeland Security has been just clocking these motherfuckers since they established themselves, in my very humble opinion. Homeland Security was real quick to be like, oh, no. And let me emphasize for you, we never had a formal agreement. Meaning, we were investigating them, actually. No. They just thought we had an agreement with them. They thought we were partnering up with them. We actually just had spook eyes on them the entire time. Just my opinion. While Schrank said the agency did not notice red flags with Cobbs previously, he's, quote, concerned about the allegations raised in the reporting. Quote, I do look forward to those that have oversight conducting an appropriate investigation and getting to the bottom of the matter, end quote. Quote, we do need to work with the non-government organizations that are in the area and find the appropriate services wherever they are as long as they are operating appropriately, end quote. Whoever this Schrank guy is, hey, Department of Homeland Security, Pacific Northwest, you're the Deputy Special Agent in charge, Stephen Schrank. Sir, you know, if you did what I think you were doing, salute. Schrank. He's like, no, let me be clear. We had no direct dealings with them, actually. In a number of years. Oh my God. Good work, Schrank. So let's see, more whistleblowers speak out. Two former Axe case managers now coming forward in interviews with Investigate West offer a more detailed picture of the way they were told to build the medical plans of trafficking survivors in order to maximize profits. Fearing retaliation as whistleblowers, they requested anonymity for this article. Axe was formed in 2020, just as Bartholomew and Cobbs opened their first safe house for trafficking victims. Well, what a fucking coinky-dink. It has to be just a coincidence, right, guys? It has to be just a coincidence that he's opening up the trauma services place at the same time she's opening up the facility, and they both are just happened to gonna build the Medicaid. Like, it has to be just coinky-dinks, right? It has to be just coinky-dinks. It can't be that the two go hand in hand. It's just a coincidence, right? Residents of the safe house said they were expected to receive therapy services from Axe, including from Bartholomew herself. Even though Bartholomew is saying, no, I wasn't billing as a clinician. No, I wasn't doing clinical things. I was just me. It was just me as a person helping them. Just me as an individual. That arrangement would be considered a self-dealing scheme that could threaten Bartholomew's license as a social worker. Right, exactly, right. That arrangement would be considered a self-dealing scheme that could threaten her license as a social worker. Axe received nearly $2.6 million in Medicaid reimbursements from 2020 through April of 2024, though that may include reimbursements for some clients who didn't stay in a safe house. The billing code that brought Axe the most money was for targeted case management, but as Investigative West previously reported, residents said they received little case management. By Bartholomew's own admission, Axe would submit reimbursement claims for case management for transporting safe house residents around town. Often for outings, residents said they had no choice but to go on. One former case manager who worked at Axe in 2024 said Bartholomew expected them to spend workdays driving clients around and logging it as case management or as psychosocial rehabilitation services. Because you can't bill for driving them, so you have to bill it for something else. You can't drive them. You can't get reimbursed for that under the federal law. So they found their workaround. Well, just log it as case management, right? Just log it as case management or as psychosocial rehabilitation services. Quote, the vast emphasis was on rides. It almost was like there were so many rides from morning to night, there was no time to do case management, end quote, is what the former employee said. That former employee said she spent 10 or more hours per day in her car driving clients to appointments, waiting in the parking lot for them to finish, then driving them back to the safe house. Like the Uber. She's like the personal Uber for the Cobbs. She's like the off-duty Uber for the Cobbs. She added that clients were sometimes billed by multiple case managers for times that didn't align with the times that case management was provided. She provided Investigate West with redacted screenshots of group texts that include Bartholomew, along with assigned schedules for Axe and Cobbs employees, which show that workers spent much of their day giving clients car rides. She said she was told to bill for the entire time under one of the two codes, including the time in the parking lot. She noted that some of those appointments were with counselors that also billed the residents Medicaid. Quote, they go and sit and wait during a counseling session and then bring them back when they're done, probably billed for 2.5, 3 hours during that time, the former employee said. Her account matches that of a second whistleblower who spoke to Investigate West in a separate interview. She described the same kind of schedule for case managers centered on logging car rides as case management or psychosocial rehabilitation services for Medicaid. Quote, it was obviously very illegal and it's fraudulent, she said, the former employee. Both former employees told Investigate West that they voiced concerns to Bartholomew and Axe Management within the last year about the organization's billing practices and potential violations of the federal HIPAA Act. None of these practices were standard at other case management jobs they'd worked for, they said. Bartholomew dismissed their concerns, telling them she'd cleared everything with Medicaid. Quote, that's fine, bill as much as possible, end quote, one of the former Axe employees remembered Bartholomew saying. But after Investigate West published its investigation, Bartholomew stopped telling staff that she'd cleared the billing practices with Medicaid and instead told them they must have misunderstood her instructions, the former employee said. That's when the employee became convinced the dubious billing practices were intentional, she said. Quote, it's like, do you guys think I'm stupid? You literally told me differently before, end quote. She quit her job at Axe after Bartholomew failed to address her concerns about the program's practices. Well, good for you, whistleblower. Bravo. Bravo, anonymous whistleblower, wherever you are, if you hear this. Bravo on you. Good job reporting it. Good job getting the fuck out of there. Good job recognizing that what they were doing. Not only fraud. Little did you know, darling, it wasn't just Medicaid fraud. Apart from the billing practices, former employees and clients emphasize that the program fails to meet the needs of many of its clients. Via Netherton, a sex trafficking survivor who lived at a Cobbs safe house in 2021, agrees with other residents who previously told Investigate West that the program was like, quote, being trafficked all over again, she said. Bartholomew played favorites, selectively enforcing her ever-changing rules and punishing those who broke them. Quote, unless you're her favorite, you know you're at the bottom, end quote, said Netherton, who was 27 at the time. It's a power structure that mirrors that of traffickers, with Bartholomew at the top of the hierarchy, survivors and former employees say. Quote, it's very much like a cult. Isn't that? You got your leader. You got to please the leader. End quote, one former Axe employee said. So this isn't even a victim saying it. This is a fucking employee saying it's very much like a cult. You've got your leader and you need to please the leader. This is an employee. Quote, she will manipulate them to no end, and every single one of them thinks that the other's her favorite, and they're all trying to become her favorite. Right, it's like literally it's like a damn madam. It's literally like a damn madam of a brothel. It's like a damn madam of a brothel. Netherton, who had come to the program seeking help for an eating disorder, was unhappy at Cobbs, but she had nowhere else to go, a fact that she says Bartholomew used against her. Quote, every time I challenged her beliefs or I did something that she disagreed with, she would threaten my living space, end quote, she said. Interesting. Netherton continued pushing back against Bartholomew's rules. Finally, after about 2 months, Bartholomew kicked her out of the safe house, Netherton said. Her eating disorder had only gotten worse while she was at Cobbs, and now she was homeless. So those services they were supposed to provide her for her eating disorder, she didn't get them. She didn't get any help. Her eating disorder actually was worse, and she ended up homeless. Thanks to Cobbs. Thanks, Paula. Quote, I went there broken, and Paula broke me even more, end quote, said Netherton, who has since recovered from the disorder and moved to a different state. They all leave Idaho. They all want to leave Idaho. We heard from the other chick in the other article too, right? The one that was picked up in Nampa, right? All she wanted to do is just her probation to be over so she could literally just leave Idaho. Dr. Moore and his wife had to get the fuck out of Idaho and leave Idaho. It seems like everybody, like, there's a lot of people who seemingly, these people aren't the first ones to say it's like a cult up there, okay? It is like a cult. Sorry, it is what it is. If that offends someone, oh, I'll be offended. I literally don't care. So, she just wanted to move to a different state, and that's sad, because if Paula actually used her job for good, she would really make a difference. If somebody really used that for good, imagine all the lives they could actually change, end quote. Okay. All three of these articles, friends, are linked, okay? Now, there's one last thing I'm going to share with you, and we're not going to go through the whole thing because it's too long. It's like 183 pages, okay? But these three articles from Investigate West are in the description of the slide for anybody who wants them. And the next thing that I'm going to share with you is this thing. So this is going to lead us right to OUR, okay? Right? So. Okay, it's that one. Let's go here. I think it's this one, yeah. Okay, so OUR Rescue, right? Moving their headquarters after another lawsuit is filed against Tim Ballard. Okay, we're not going to read through the whole thing. I'll link it for you. You guys can read through the whole thing if you want. They relocated. The plan was to relocate for January 2025. They're going to be building out direct services for survivors of human trafficking and sexual exploitation. So the new person that took over is this Tammy Lee person. But look at where it is. Operation Underground Railroad Rescue is moving its headquarters from Salt Lake City, Utah, to Minneapolis, Minnesota. Salt Lake City, Utah. Wasn't it Salt Lake City, Utah feds that came in and got involved with this case? The Koberger case in the investigation, right? When they brought in the FBI guys. Wasn't it some people from Salt Lake City, Utah, the federal FBI office out of Salt Lake City, Utah? They had some of their guys from the Salt Lake City, Utah office come and assist in the investigation into the homicides, if I remember. Okay, interesting. So Tammy Lee, OUR Rescue, they're going to Minneapolis, right? And that was in 2025, right? We remember what happened in 2025 with Minneapolis, Minnesota, correct? And the amazing, just the insane level of fraud. Never mind trafficking, okay? A lot of these fraud busts are in my opinion, it's the we're going to bust this over here, but we're killing two birds with one stone, in my opinion. We're doing one, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, in my opinion. So let's see here. Lee joined our rescue as CEO in February of 2024 with the task of rebuilding and rebranding the organization. Why? Well, because Tim Ballard, he came under investigation in 2023, right? So she became the CEO in 2024. So I just want you guys to see, okay, that I think I wanted to show you this just for the dates, okay, just for the dates here, that they moved everything in 2025. She took over in 2024. They moved everything from Salt Lake City to Minneapolis. All right, he's out. This piece of shit's out. And she had to take over to rebuild and rebrand the organization because of all of the sexual assault allegations and everything coming in against this guy. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing that with you, but I'm going to link it in the description for anybody who wants it. Not the description, sorry. I'm going to put it in chat for anybody who wants it. I'm getting so tired. Put that there in chat. And let's go to the next thing. So, this is the other one. So this is the federal lawsuit. As you can see, it's 183 pages. Okay, we're not going through the whole thing. You can see down here, Tim Ballard, Matt Cooper, Mike Parenta, Operation Underground Railroad, aka OUR Rescue, a Utah nonprofit corporation, MS Williams and Company LLC. It's always a fucking LLC with these traffickers, dude. Always an LLC. We'll read through the first few pages here because it's not a lot, and then the rest of it goes into graphic text messages and stuff that I'm not going to read here, but I'll link it for everybody so that if you want it, it's yours. I'm going to read through just the first few pages here, okay? Plaintiffs by and through their counsel bring this complaint against defendants Timothy Ballard and Operation Underground Railroad, Inc., hereinafter OUR, and allege as follows. Defendant Ballard and Defendant Operation Underground Railroad, organizations purportedly dedicated to fighting human trafficking, have violated Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act for exploiting and trafficking women for sex and or labor through the deceptive tactic called couples ruse. Rather than rescuing victims, the defendants manipulated and coerced women into sexually exploitive situations under the guise of undercover missions. Interesting. Plaintiffs hereby provide a short and plain statement of their claims showing that they are entitled to relief, as required by Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 8A, and said notice is hereby provided below. This action is brought under the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act, 18 U.S.C. Section 1595, which provides a civil remedy for victims of trafficking. 2. Plaintiffs were recruited by the defendants to participate in, quote, operations under the guise of combating human trafficking, during which they were subjected to manipulation, coercion, abuse, and exploitation. Interesting. 3. Defendants used deceptive practices, including but not limited to the so-called couples ruse, to coerce and exploit plaintiffs for personal and financial gain in direct violation of federal anti-trafficking laws. These are all your plaintiffs here, and look at this. How many of them are out of Utah? All Utah. We got one out of Virginia. Everybody else is Utah. A lot of it's Salt Lake City, Salt Lake City, Salt Lake City. We got one out of Virginia. Defendant Tim Ballard is a resident of Utah County, state of Utah, and founder of OUR. Defendant Matthew Cooper is Ballard's right-hand man. He's a resident of Utah County, state of Utah. Defendant Michael Parenta laundered money for the M.S. Williams and Company, LLC, so that Ballard would have cash to pay for his escorts and pay bribes to foreign officials. He is a resident of Utah County, state of Utah. Defendant Operation Underground Railroad, Inc. is a Utah nonprofit corporation that claims to lead global efforts to combat human trafficking, but engaged in fraudulent, exploitive, and abusive practices. Defendant M.S. Williams and Company, LLC is a Wyoming limited liability company, with its sole member being Cloud Peak Law, LLC. And then it has all of these different things linked, okay? These Google Drives here, but we're not going to look at them. If you want to, at your leisure, go for it. Oh, okay. Sorry, this continues, I think, to the next page. Defendant M.S. Williams and Company, LLC is a Wyoming limited liability company with its sole member being Cloud Peak Law, LLC. And then it says, does I through 100. I don't know. Through 100, this might be a typo, are potential beneficiaries under the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act, which allows victims to bring civil action against a beneficiary who profited or gained from the trafficking activities, even if they did not directly participate in the trafficking conduct. The complaint will be amended to include these entities soon as they become known in discovery. And then it has jurisdiction and venue here, factual allegations. Defendant Ballard is a captivating storyteller who attracted many followers to his nonprofit organization, OUR. I was one of them. I didn't actually give them money. Thank God I didn't go to work for them. But I did do like they held this like online certification course or whatever, to recognize the signs of trafficking and blah, blah, blah. And fuckers. Glad I didn't give them any of my money or work with them in any way. Under the guise of philanthropic missions or operations aimed at rescuing women and children from human trafficking, Ballard used his position of influence and trust to exploit vulnerable individuals. Ballard specifically targeted women for sex, labor, and other services in violation of federal anti-trafficking laws. Ballard uses his status to recruit plaintiffs to participate in, quote, undercover operations as, quote, operatives to, quote, save women and children. Lucy. I wonder if Lucy, I probably don't even have to say anything, right? I haven't talked to you in days. You can verify that you and I actually haven't spoken in like a week. I think I sent you a voice text early when I had a moment, maybe a week ago. So, Lucy, if you're here, you can still verify. I can guarantee you, Lucy knows what my brain thought when I read that. And where my brain automatically goes to when I read that. Let's see. We'll play a guessing game. Can anybody else guess where my brainworms go to when I read this? Ballard used his status to recruit plaintiffs to participate in, quote, undercover operations as, quote, operatives in order to, quote, save women and children. Right. Recruit them. Get them to think they're helping you, find pedophiles and find traffickers. Wild. That's some wild shit. Ballard portrayed himself as a selfless leader who was dedicated to helping vulnerable populations. However, in reality, Ballard used his influence to manipulate and coerce plaintiffs into performing sex, labor, and services for his personal benefit and the benefit of OUR. Once Ballard targeted and recruited a woman, he quickly engaged in grooming and controlling her by using a coercive tactic known as the couple's ruse. Oh my god. The brain worms. Man, yeah. Like I can almost see it, like right in my little third eye, right? I can kind of see it like a movie in my little third eye here, my God's eyeball. It's like a movie, actually, playing out, and I can see it. The couple's ruse involves a deceptive strategy in which female operatives were required to simulate intimate relationships with Ballard to purportedly fool the traffickers. Then we have MS Williams money laundering. Ballard would allegedly hire prostitutes as part of his illicit activities, using funds that were funneled through MS Williams and Company LLC and involving financial contributions or assistance from defendant Parenta. The use of cash from these sources allowed Ballard to obscure the transactions, making it difficult to trace payments linked to his misconduct. The cash flow facilitated his exploitation of women while maintaining a facade of legitimate anti-trafficking operations under the guise of the couple's ruse. Sidebar, I'm telling you, Department of Homeland Security was all over this guy's sphincter, bro. And Cobbs worked with them, which fucking took their asses down with them too. Just my opinion. I don't know shit. The 990 forms filed by OUR reveal significant payments made to MS Williams for, quote, operations support. Specifically, in the 2023 filing, MS Williams and Company LLC is listed as having received $1,510,000 and $1,510,262 from OUR. So OUR sent or has funneled through MS Williams and Company LLC $1.5 million. Interesting. And then they include all these links here, so that's why I'm going to give this to anybody who wants it, because you can actually, these are clickable links in this file, and it's exhibits. It's exhibits that were used. It says, see audio of Ballard's attorney explaining to the court in a sexual violence protective order hearing against Ballard, whereby he explains how Ballard would hire his high-end escorts and, do gross things with them. And then in the other one, you can see Ballard explaining that he can do whatever he wants with escorts in Latin America whenever he wants. Right. And he was, too, if I remember correctly. These payments were categorized under operations-related services, but the exact nature of these services is not detailed in the 990s. Under the guise of the couple's ruse, this method exploited the trust and emotional needs for safety of the plaintiffs, often leading them to believe they were entering into a mutually supportive and safe relationship, only to be manipulated into exploitive or abusive situations. Ballard exploited the plaintiffs, subjecting them to unwanted and coercive sexual advances, physical and psychological manipulation, sexual contact, and in some cases, violent assault, all while promising it was, quote, necessary to rescue children. Fucking demon. Obviously, guys, this is all alleged, right? This is all alleged. As far as I know, I don't think he's been convicted of any of this. So this is all just alleged, right? But if any of this is true, okay, which, I'm sure actually a lot of it is, which is why feds and spooks have had their eyes on this guy, on his operations and what he's been doing, and, for a while now. But this is demon shit, right? This motherfucker's on demon time all the time, if any of this is true, okay? While claiming to be, this man of God and whatever, okay? He's literally on demon time all the fucking time, if any of this is true, for the love of Pete. Having these girls that he's recruiting into believing they're going to be doing undercover fucking human trafficking operations with him. He's actually just recruiting them to make them his, personal fucking sex slave. All under the guise of, no, you're helping me do undercover operations. That's demon shit. Wow. Plaintiffs have set forth in greater specificity how Ballard implemented the couple's ruse and assaulted them, and Exhibits D through I, which are incorporated herewith, as if fully set forth herewith. Yeah, and trust me, it's all there, guys. When you read through these like messages and some of the other stuff in this document, it is out of this world. Like, you thought the Epstein shit was crazy, huh? Read this. The couple's ruse. So this was his favorite thing to do, right? He would find the one that he liked the most, the one that he was attracted to the most, with this guy, if I remember correctly, because this is like a secondary complaint. There are other complaints. If I remember correctly, he would find the one that was like the real nice looking ones. Those are the ones that he kept for himself, and he would recruit them under the guise of going to help him, and many of them are victims. Many of the people he recruited are actual victims themselves, thinking that they are going to go be an advocate for other victims working with this guy, all to be made his slave, essentially. Holy, that's demon shit. That is absolute demon, like, whoa. That's not even like regular level demon. That's like expert level demon, right? Expert level demon. Appearance of legitimacy and trust. Due to his former work with Homeland Security, he's a motherfucking former Homeland Security too, that's right, religious and political connections, and multiple media appearances, Ballard gained significant recognition as a prominent figure in the anti-trafficking movement, which made him appear as trustworthy. Ballard presented the couple's ruse as a necessary tactic in undercover operations. It's actually not, ever for any reason in any circumstance, actually. No, it's not the couple's ruse. What a piece of shit. Because of Ballard's perceived expertise and status, the couple's ruse appeared to the women as a legitimate undercover tactic. Yeah, how would they know? They're just victims. They've never worked, most of them haven't worked for law enforcement. They've never done this before, and the ones that did go to work for him, they figured out real fucking quick. Nope. This guy's weird. Ballard would oftentimes introduce these women to his famous friends, such as United States Representatives Burgess Owens, Tom Harrison, Tony Robbins, and Glenn Beck, to heighten their trust. To heighten their trust that Ballard was as he claimed. He first claimed that the couple's ruse would prevent the operatives from having to touch each other. Then, as he gained confidence, he claimed that posing as a romantic couple, including engaging in sexual touching and sexual acts, was essential to avoid suspicion from the traffickers, whom Ballard portrayed as omnipotent. However, it became clear that the couple's ruse was simply a false pretense for Ballard to groom, manipulate, and sexually assault the women participating in the operations. Targeting his victims. Ballard seeks out women he is personally attracted to, but who have no undercover training in any formal or legitimate sense, and no Spanish language fluency as Ballard does. Right. So you can't have any, because you'll know right away what he's doing is exactly what you were trained to combat. And you would pick up on it immediately if you were working in close proximity to him. If you got into this organization and you've ever had any previous training, you would know immediately, once you see what they're doing over here, that this is exactly what you were trained to combat. Holy shit. He then grooms his victim to gain their admiration and trust by positioning himself as a spiritual savior and heroic figure in the fight against trafficking. Tailored praise. Ballard tells the victim she is perfect for undercover operations. Yeah. Ballard manipulates a woman into believing that she has special skills and qualities needed for undercover anti-trafficking operations, making her feel important and needed. He identifies what the woman values most or what she might be insecure about, and then crafts his praise around these areas, making the praise feel deeply personal to her. Ballard entices the women with promises of participating in exciting exotic operations in foreign countries, often framed as a life-saving mission. You're going to travel, yeah. You know, we're going to be going, well, we're doing these undercover stings in Idaho, and then we might be doing some undercover stings, in Miami, and then we might bounce over to Texas and do some undercover stings there. And then we might actually be going out to, like, Latin America. We might be going out to Europe. Yeah, you'd be perfect for it. You'd be perfect for these undercover operations. Interesting. Ballard entices the women with promises of participating in exciting, exotic operations in foreign countries, often framed as a life-saving mission. Ballard introduces the couple's ruse and asks if the woman is comfortable pretending to be his romantic partner, first explaining that restricted safe touching would be required, but later explaining that participating in sexual or intimate physical contact with him could be necessary through his psychic, Janet Rousson, who is telling him that he is a prophet and does not have to obey the rules. Well, it sounds like that cult. Immediately push the cult button. Now you know why Department of Homeland Security followed. I'm telling you, they followed this motherfucker to Idaho. I'm telling you, they did. They followed him to Idaho, and it led him right to Cobbs. They killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Holy shit. He represents to her that he will keep her safe and protect her throughout the process, portraying himself as a comforting and nurturing figure. He also wants to practice with the women well before the op, going to the woman's house, hotel room, or office and trying to take the woman to a strip club or massage parlor together to make sure that they have chemistry. Oh my God, what a pig. Once trust is established, Ballard has Matthew Cooper or another associate facilitate the signing of the NDAs, framing the agreement as a professional requirement while emphasizing that the women will be paid for their involvement. This leads the women to believe that everything related to the operation is confidential, which leaves her isolated from her support system, such as friends, family, or coworkers, making her increasingly reliant on Ballard and Cooper. Ballard uses emotional, psychological, physical, and spiritual tactics to exert control over the woman's behavior. Ballard texts the woman, playing on the woman's emotional vulnerabilities and cultivating a personal relationship by convincing her that developing a physical and spiritual intimacy is essential for their performance in operations. Over time, he uses his emotional connection to groom her and make her more dependent on him. Ballard shares personal, intimate grievances, claiming that his wife, Catherine, does not meet his needs, specifically referring to her refusal to get a Brazilian wax or engage in activities outside of her religious commitments. Ballard normalizes these inappropriate conversations, framing them as part of fully connecting as a couple's ruse partner. Ballard introduces elements of jealousy or competition into the dynamic, making the women feel like she is having to prove herself by claiming that other women have failed the mission by falling in love with him. He speaks horribly of other members on the team, such as Matt Cooper, Michael Porrenta, Matt Osborne, and others, as well as other female operators, so that the women would feel competitive and afraid that he would deem them a traitor or get sued by Ballard if they did not perform adequately. So he put them in competition with each other too, huh? After isolating them and making them think that they're on undercover missions they can't tell anybody about. Interesting. And giving them a bunch of money too. They are paying them, by the way. These undercover female operators are being paid very nicely. He's paying them straight cash. Interesting. He emphasizes that there are rules that must be followed, but then asks, quote, how far are you willing to go to save a child, end quote. This leads to the woman being confused when he begins to manipulate emotions and push boundaries further. Once the woman has been groomed into a position of trust or emotional dependence, Ballard escalates attempts to manipulate the women into coercive sexual situations, such as practicing physical intimacy and claiming it is essential to maintain the illusion of being a couple during the operations. The women often feel pressure to comply because it's Tim Ballard and he's the anti-trafficking expert. Ballard tells the women that they both have compromising information on each other, ensuring that they won't reveal his misconduct by framing their relationship as one of mutual trust and secrecy. Oh my God. Ballard would often share confidential legal communications to impress the women and reinforce his image as powerful and influential figure. Ballard would intentionally isolate the women from other members of the team, making it easier to manipulate and exploit them sexually. In many cases, Ballard would sexually assault the women in private settings where Matthew Cooper would be present or nearby, ready to provide false testimony if necessary. If a woman resisted his advances or became suspicious, Ballard would claim he could no longer participate in operations due to his fame. He would then, quote, ghost the woman and shift responsibility for future operations to other members of the team, making it appear as though the sexual assault was part of the program. He would claim, such as with plaintiffs Hightower and others, to be a traitor when they exposed his criminal fraud. Defendant OUR, despite awareness and knowledge of Ballard's labor and sex trafficking, facilitated and covered up these actions, failing to protect plaintiffs. OUR actively participated in the solicitation, recruitment, and exploitation of plaintiffs and profited by these illegal activities. In fact, OUR upper management facilitated Ballard's abuse of these women by giving OUR employees time off by cooking the books so that non-couples ruse employees would not know what the couples ruse employee partner was doing. Oh my God. The actions of defendants were designed to exploit the plaintiffs for Ballard's sexual gratification by having plaintiffs perform sex, labor, and services under the guise of noble humanitarian missions, which of course is prohibited under the TVPRA. What's this? See voicemail of Brad Damon explaining to Mrs. Voorhees how to manipulate her work records so that no one would know she was with Ballard and she would not have to take time off. Interesting. Ballard and OUR have used many of the plaintiffs' communications against them, despite the communications being made at the behest of Ballard and OUR when the plaintiffs still believed the couple's ruse was legitimate. For example, Ballard has sued the plaintiffs for defamation. OUR has sued plaintiff Celeste Voorhees for defamation and violating the NDAs. However, Ballard recently revealed while in an impaired state on a podcast that his wife Catherine Ballard instructed to be immediately taken down, that the couple's ruse was developed by him through prayer and study. Oopsie poopsie. So he got a little tipsy, and while he was tipsy on a podcast, he oopsie poopsie let it slip out that actually the couple's ruse was developed by him personally through prayer and study. And his wife was like, fuck, take that podcast down immediately. Interesting. OUR has acknowledged that the couple's ruse was a past sin of OUR. Ballard's wife, Catherine, had the podcast immediately taken down because of the things Ballard said on the podcast. And then you have the cause of action here, okay? Violations to the TVPRA for sexual and labor trafficking. The anti-traffickers are the traffickers, right? Kind of like with COBS. It's the same thing with COBS. Do you guys see why hopefully I was able to bring it for full circle for you here? Anybody who's still here, who's still hanging on onto this live stream? Did we bring it full circle for you? Is it making sense? So Ballard here, it's almost like fucking Paula Bartholomew and her son over there were taking their tips from fucking Ballard, you know, on how to successfully operate legal trafficking. Okay, he's doing it one way, she's doing it another, but they both came together to work together, and immediately came under investigation the following year. So is it all coming full circle, friends? Hopefully it's making sense. All right, let me come back to my chat. Hello, anyone. If you just joined and I missed you, I'm sorry. When I'm in another window reading, I can't see my chat, friends. So welcome on in, everybody. Bethune, hello. Crud Dog, what up? If I'm missing anybody, sorry. Hope you guys are having a great night. Mama 5, hello. So yeah, interesting. Very, very interesting. So the anti-traffickers are the traffickers. Just like Cobbs. Plaintiffs reallege and incorporate by reference all preceding paragraphs as if fully set forth herein. Defendants knowingly recruited, transported, harbored, and engaged plaintiffs for labor and services through means of fraud, coercion, and deception in violation of 18 U.S.C. blah, blah, blah. If you're new here, this is what we do. We don't read through all of the United States Code stuff. Sorry. Plaintiffs were coerced into participating in operations that subjected them to sexual exploitation and forced labor under false pretenses. Defendants' conduct caused the plaintiffs severe emotional and physical harm. As a result of the defendants' violations of the TVPRA, plaintiffs are entitled to compensatory and punitive damages, as well as attorney fees and costs. Fucking right. Especially if they got the text messages and the videos and shit to prove it, which they do. And it's in this document, friends. Prayer for relief. Wherefore, the plaintiffs respectfully request that this court enter judgment against the defendants and award plaintiffs the following relief. Compensatory damages for physical, emotional, and psychological injuries sustained by the plaintiffs. Punitive damages to punish and deter future unlawful conduct. Reasonable attorney fees and costs as provided by law. Any such further relief as this court deems just and proper. Blah, blah, blah. Demand for jury trial. Plaintiffs demand a trial by jury on all issues so triable, dated this 22nd day of October 2024. Okay. And then, look at that. Alan Mortensen. All Utah Law, PLLC. We have a Suzette Rasmussen and a Mortensen Milne, Alan W. Mortensen, out of Utah. For fuck's sake, Fitziani, you know JJ is gonna love that, huh? You get it right here. Plaintiff's address. Mortensen. Salt Lake City, Utah. So we have a Mortensen representing the plaintiffs here that are trying to sue the balls off of Ballard in this complaint, this federal lawsuit. And then as you guys see here, we have Exhibit A. You can see it starts going into all the text messages and stuff here. We're not going to go through all of them. Exhibit B. So here, I believe being told, at some point she's told here to put him under the name Brian, this person. She's told, look at this, she's told to put him as the name Brian in her phone, right? If I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that, but if you're someone who downloads this document and you go read through it. So it's 183 pages. It's a lot of crazy ass text messages that I'm not going to read here, okay? Because some of it is honestly like, these people are disgusting, They're demon. They're on demon time 24/7, bro, even when they're with their kids in these text messages. Whoever this guy is, whether it's an actual Brian B or if it's Ballard under a fucking fake name, whoever it is, okay, which I think it's Ballard, yeah. No, there's times where, like, he's texting, talking about, like, I'm with my kids, and, you know, it's gross. It's absolutely gross, and he's on demon time while he's claiming he's with his kids, okay? Fucking disgusting. So we're going to keep going a little ways down this way, because as you get past the text messages, you get into another document in this filing here. And he basically, it's a cult. If you read through all of this, you guys will see it's absolute grooming. It's a cult, 1,000,000%. It's a damn sex cult operating under the guise of rescuing victims of trafficking. In actuality, they're to recruit. They're recruiting them. So here we have Exhibit C. Also Tim here. This is where he's so excited to get his EA, which is his, the girl assigned to him, I guess, you know, to do the ops with or whatever. And then at one point she gets chucked because she picks up on his weird vibes. So he tosses her, makes her sign the NDA and all that crap, right? Yeah, she wants to go on ops so we can connect. That's not why we go undercover. It's about the mission. The chemistry stuff is important and helpful on many fronts. But it has to be about the mission, and she's not good at it. She said she will learn how to, and then admits she wants to do it for other benefits. She's being so selfish. Like, yeah, okay. So, just trigger warning, if you're one of those people that's going to take the time to go read through those texts, prepare to be angry, okay? Prepare to be angry. This is the one that I wanted you guys to see. So, if you do take this document, I'm going to put it in the chat right now for everybody, okay? Everybody grab it, save it, print it, laminate it, frame it, do whatever you want to do with it, okay? But make sure you grab this here, and you need to go read this exhibit here, statement of one of the victims, okay? This is the statement from the Hightower. She's one of the victims in the lawsuit that Attorney Mortensen is representing. So Attorney Mortensen is representing Hightower here. I'm not going to read through this because it's the most diabolical shit I've ever read. I don't want to say ever read. It's definitely diabolical, though. Some diabolical shit. It all pertains to the couple's ruse and what you had to do, okay, and all of that. So, I linked it for you guys. You go through it yourself, okay? It's got some very, very, very interesting things in here, okay? View it at your leisure. Trigger warning for anybody who does view it, okay? But I'm telling you right now, this is some diabolical shit. And I just want you all to keep in mind that, you know, this is all... it's probably nothing. It's probably just a coincidence. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that, you know, Vickie Gooch teams up. You know, the whole Cobbs thing starting in 2020, or, you know, same time DHS is rolling in and Axe is opening up and Cobbs is opening up, and then they open their first facility in 2021. And then by 2022, DHS, ISP, Vickie Gooch rubbing elbows with Cobbs and OUR, and then immediately getting into 2023, both go under investigation. Cobbs, OUR, and its founder, right? The founder, at least, goes under investigation, and they're getting sued left and right. So, I don't know, friends. I really do not know. You know, Never ever listen to me. You know what I say here, friends. I'm no one. I don't know shit. I just happen to go through these articles from Investigate West, and, you know, I had a few things click in my brain, and these are my brainworms, and do with those what you will, right? But never ever listen to me. I don't know shit. I just had a few things that seemed very interesting to me. Recruiting people, and he really likes the pretty ones. He really likes the really pretty ones. Recruiting them into thinking they're going to be helping do undercover operations to rescue trafficking victims and children, huh? Recruiting them for that. And, you know, paying them a bunch of money in cash, getting them to sign an NDA, so you can't really tell anybody where you're going or what you're doing or where you're staying. But, you know, they're paying you in all this cash, and you've got to keep it a secret from everybody, and you're going to be traveling all over the place, and very, very, very interesting. So, I don't know. I did link the 3 Investigate West articles for you guys. I will put this one more time in the chat for anybody who missed it. Okay, let's copy and paste that bad boy back in there. For anybody who wants it, make sure you grab it, go ahead and click it, download it, you know, and did you thumbs it up, thumbs it down? Did my audio hold up for the whole thing? I'm going to go listen to it on replay at 2 speed tomorrow at some point. So hopefully my audio held up, at least. You know, sweet baby Jesus. Hopefully the audio held up for this. I doubt it, though. I doubt it did. So, I don't know, friends. There was a few things that stuck out to me. They clicked for me. If they didn't click for you, that's fine. But for me, they did. And, you know. Me and my brainworms. So, I definitely won't see you again until April, friends. Okay? It's the last night of March. And I won't see you again until, you know, once we're moved. Probably isn't going to be until, like, maybe around the 9th or the 10th. Maybe even later than that. Because, you know, I got to get settled in and stuff. So I'm thinking I probably won't see y'all until literally, like, the 2nd week of April. I'll see you maybe in chats or something here and there, but I definitely won't see you guys for about 2 weeks, okay? Even if they drop docs and I can go over docs, it may be a very sporadic, like, late night thing. But other than that, I can't make no promises, okay? Unless they drop some docs. I may try to squeeze something in, but from now until about the 9th or 10th, I'm just jam-packed to the gills, getting us moved into the new place. So, it is what it is. Okay? Literally starting from tomorrow through the 8th. From the 1st to, like, the 8th. 9th. We're moving. Okay? But I do want to say, if you missed the March shout-outs, head over to the community tab. Every single one of you who sent me a little something on the Cashapp for the month of March, or if you sent a Venmo, all of you freaking amazing members, people that are becoming members, you know, there's like over 100 people that are a member of this channel, and I just want you guys to know how much I truly appreciate it. I really do. I appreciate all the support, all the love, and, you know, I hope you guys have a great night. It's late. I gotta go to bed. I gotta get up early. It's already midnight. How long are we at? We're at 3 hours, and I wanted this to be 1.5. My goodness. Missy Q, thank you so much for your super sticker. I think someone gifted memberships, and I missed it. Or maybe not. Maybe that's from a previous live, and it's still sitting back here in the backstage. I don't know. If you did get gifted a membership, though, make sure you say thank you. And to whoever gifted memberships, thank you. I hope you guys have a great night. Mods, love ya. Members, love ya. Lurkers, love ya. Haters, love ya. I don't, but, you know, I do. Just kidding. Nothing but love over here, okay? Thumbs it up, thumbs it down, follow your heart, not your frown. Good night, everybody. See you in a couple weeks. Bye.